Hello all, hope you is goo. Welcome back to the second part of the Balatro tier list, where I'm going to be covering the everything else, from playing card, the actual card values, to additions, to spectral cards, to tags. Please bear in mind that, similar to the Joker tier list, this is more with the thought in mind of playing typically within the gold stake tier, is where I'm sort of focusing the sort of locus of the approach from, even though of course this logic can mostly apply to lower stakes. Much like I did in the Joker tier list, I'll try to incorporate commentary on lower stakes or different types of stakes if necessary. This is getting me hungry for some meat. Talk about stakes, not those kinds. Let's just get into it, and we'll start with the basics of, what do we start with? I think we'll start with the actual card ranks themselves to begin with, then we'll go into additions and enhancements. So let's talk about the 13 available ranks of cards. So let's start with the ace. The ace actually scores for 11 points, not for 1. It takes blackjack principles, where an ace can be either seen as 11 or 1, but by default it's a soft.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Earns you 11. Ace synergizes with Odd Todd, synergizes with the Scholar, of course. They're the two main ones I can think of right now. I'm not including the suits in this, by the way. I covered the suits in a general sense during the tier list. All the numbers, by the way, will all just be spades. I grabbed images of spades for the purposes of this. So aces also work well for Ride the Bus because they're not court cards, but they're high scoring by default. Honestly, if you asked me a while ago, I'd have said that aces were S tier and that there's nothing that comes close. But I'm really warming up to how court cards are. I think ace is honestly like super high A, if not low S. I really want to just leave it here. Can I just leave it here? Let's just kind of stick it like here, but know that I want to put it precisely there. All right, we'll just start with that. So what comes after 1? Why 2, of course. So 2s synergize with Wee Joker, Even Stevens, Hack. So they've actually got the same amount, if not more, options than the ace, actually. And they've got some relatively better options in a sense. I actually really like playing 2s. Until you get the jokers that require the ramp up for 2s though, it's kind of mid. I honestly think that 2s come in the same tier as aces, in the sense that they would sit about here, to be honest. But let's say they're slightly lower than aces, and that aces would come over, would be something like that. Even though I'm now playing solitaire, clearly. Talk about every card game other than Balatro here, aren't I? Next up, numerically speaking, is 3, of course. So 3s, Odd Todd, Hack. Yeah, I really don't like 3s. 3s don't do much in Balatro, realistically speaking. They don't. They're also one of the lowest scoring, of course, being only above 2s by base. Their Joker options are relatively meh. I don't really think much of 3s, honestly. I'd rather just not have them in the deck. I think we'll go about here, somewhere between. Let's go C tier. I don't think any card itself truly is D tier per se. I may have to readjust this. I think this is low C though. This would be like, if we had like loads and loads of options, this would be somewhere like down here-ish. So yeah, 3s aren't all that great. Next up is 4. So, Even Steven again, Hack again. 4s actually have another option of walkie-talkie. So they've got a little bit more flexibility than a 3, but walkie-talkie is a discount Scholar, 4 is a discount ace in that sense. A weird way of describing a 4, but it is what it is. Honestly, I think 4s are high C, low B. It's much like the C tier would sit somewhere out here if there was like a million bajillion different numbers in the deck. But we'll leave it there for now. Next up, 5. So, 5. Once again, we encounter Odd Todd and Hack. 5 is the highest value of a Hack card. So, while 2 has better options to play with on Jokers, 5 is the highest scoring one that can cooperate with Hack. So when you get your enhancements and additions, I'd rather take a souped up 5 over a souped up 3, that's for sure. It basically just gives that extra little bit of leverage, meaning that I can't say that this is in line with a 3. I think this is slightly better than a 3. If this was a full tier list, in terms of like how the Joker one ended up looking, these would be high C, low B. But I think a 4 is slightly better than a 5. But a 5 isn't too bad. Certainly better than what comes next. Alright, so on to the second hand of counting. This is a 6. Again, even Stevens. But honestly, 6 is the beginning of the weird part of the actual deck, where what else does a 6 even really do? Nothing. 6s are just kind of there. They just kind of vibe. When I'm removing cards from a deck, I'll talk about deck manipulation in a bit. It will come up quite heavily during the tarot cards and enhancements bit. But when I'm modifying a deck, the first ones I take out are 6s and 3s. Honestly, I think a 3 might be slightly better than a 6 because I value Odd Todd slightly better than Even Steven, personally speaking. So honestly, 6 is sitting in C tier, if I'm quite honest. There's not a lot else of 6s we can just kind of gloss on through.
Did you forget about me?
7 is up. So as discussed, I favour the odds over the evens. 7s, again, this is a weird part of the deck. 7s and 6s have got nothing that really incorporate with them. They do nothing real special. They're just kind of there, honestly. I think 7's slightly higher than a 6, but it's better than a 3 because a 3 is worth less points. 3's better if you took into account the fact that it can trigger Hack. That's probably about the only thing. So these two are about the same, honestly, between a 3 and a 7. 7 gives slightly more points by default, but 3 has more potential by default. So I'll take the slight extra potential there. Next up is the 8. So 8, even Stevens. But 8 does have, of course, the 8 ball, which allows you to create the tarot cards, meaning that I value this slightly higher than the other cards. Like down here, it's not C tier. It doesn't incorporate much else though. How the Balatro Jokers work, the base ones at least, I'm not including any modded Jokers in here. If people have made modded stuff for all this, great. But the middle of the deck isn't well situated in relation to what Jokers do for them. So they kind of hang out in limbo. Honestly, 8 is high C, low B again. It would sit somewhere about here-ish. This has got the potential to create Jokers. That's the only reason why I'm putting it above a 3. 3, again, has the Hack capabilities there. It's got potential for it, but honestly, I'd rather just convert from a 3 upwards to say a 4 or a 5. Let's maybe move this. Yeah. Again, these two are kind of interchangeable, and they both sit somewhere down here-ish. But they both sit slightly above an 8. So I think we're looking at about there for now. Again, this is like a high C, low B. These are all roughly in here, to be fair. Next up is 9s. So odd card functions and Cloud 9. Also, I say odd card functions, really, it's just Odd Todd, isn't it, when I say odd card functions. 9s is pretty much just Cloud 9. As discussed in the Joker tier list, Cloud 9 is kind of growing on me. It's not bad, but realistically, I don't want 9s in my end deck. And I think I'd rather take the chance to make the tarot cards over the money. Even though I think I put the Cloud 9 card itself in a higher tier. Which is a bit strange that I'm now saying that the 9 is a lower card value than the 8, isn't it? That's a bit weird. Let's then again, the 9 does create odd chips, which I favour over the malt. Let's say this. Let's say this. I still think these two are below 4s and 5s though. Next up is 10s. Even functions and walkie-talkie. It's lower than a 4 because 4 has hack capability, but it doesn't have much else going for it, unfortunately. Even the 8's got the same stuff as the 10, except you go for the walkie-talkie instead of the tarot card. They're basically about the same. Situationally speaking, these are interchangeable here. To be fair, a lot of these are interchangeable, honestly, but let's leave 10 about there. First up for the enhancements is a bonus. So bonus adds 30 chips to a scored point value. Really nice. I will say that unlike the bonus of the malt, which I'll discuss in a second, the bonus of bonus keeps itself nice throughout the game, very consistent. I actually really like having bonus. Honestly, high Halo S, I feel. We'll keep that floating in S tier for now, and I might readjust that in a second. Next up for enhancements is glass. So I talked before about how this. Let's slow our roll a little bit. So glass edition doubles the multiplier value as it currently sits, and it has a 1 in 6 chance of breaking. This is really good for deck manipulation. Throw caution. You can literally just throw caution to the wind, play your glass cards, get rid of them. I like to see glass cards as a panic button, almost. They're really helpful to limp you through when you're having a hard time, and then once they're gone, oh no, you just made your deck stronger by manipulating it. While we're on the subject of manipulation, actually, now would be a good time to refer back to a comment made by the Meme Fist in response to 25SZZ from the Joker tier list video, where they said, trading card is one of the best deck fixing jokers in the game. The ability to shrink your deck in control of the cards that you have is so extremely valuable. Yes, very true. I gave the trading card a D tier for reference. The reason for that is because I value discards when I play hands. I suppose you could stretch it up to a C for its usefulness. It is really good for deck manipulation, but I prefer to do deck manipulation via tarot cards, which we'll discuss later. But this is also another great source of deck manipulation because you can take out your pesky 6s and, you know, your pesky 9s and whatever, and just like eliminate them and help you limp through. So I quite like glass cards. Glass cards are starting to grow on me from what it can allow for. So honestly, I think glass will sit high B, low A. It's about here. But for now, I'll move it to B tier. That's ultimately where I'm thinking. Next enhancement is gold. Think Spandau Ballet. Always believe in your soul. What I will say is, when you leave it in your hand, you get $3 at the end of the round. Excellent. What you sacrifice by having a gold card in your deck, though, is the ability to utilize, or rather the free ability to utilize the card. Because really, when you've got gold cards, unless you've got the golden ticket, you want to keep the gold cards in your hand. So that can compromise the fact that it's a potential card that would otherwise be cycled around to get to other better stuff. Honestly, it's not as bad as I previously gave credit for. I honestly think this is high C, low B. But I think we're going to go low B on this one. I'll readjust this when we get the additions and the, you know, the I'll put the seals in on this particular page as well, I reckon. But yeah, honestly, it's really quite helpful for making money. A single gold card can do the same, pretty much the same as Cloud9 by default almost. $3 instead of $4, but you've got no real effort involved. It's not awful, but it is certainly a weaker enhancement. Remember, you can only have one enhancement. Every card can only have one enhancement, one addition, and one seal. If a card's got a gold enhancement, it sure as hell can't have a bonus or a lucky enhancement, for instance. So in this case, it's opportunity cost. Early game, having the gold stuff to give you the money, to get you the more jokers and the tarot cards and the vouchers could be useful, and then you get rid of it, is what I'll say about the gold cards. What I do like to do though is I actually prefer to leave my devil tarot cards. I'll discuss this at devil tarot cards as well, don't worry. What I tend to do is if I'm sitting on a devil tarot card, I won't turn a card gold. I'll wait until the end of the round when I know that the hand I'm about to play is going to clear, then apply devil to make sure that a specific card I'm leaving in my deck securely gives me the money for keeping it in hand. Is how I tend to play my gold ones. Next up is lucky enhancement. So I really like lucky. It's not necessarily the best thing to go for per se, but it's fun. Like, think about the fact that if this was a fun tier list, lucky card immediately goes into S. I love waiting to see if the lucky effects proc, but for the most part this sits about here. So it's a 1 in 5 chance to get plus 20 multiplier, and it's a 1 in 15 chance to get $20. Realistically, the odds on getting both to proc is 1 in 75. Of course, if you've got oops all sixes, you can magically make that a lot better. So much like how the bonus was somewhere between A and S, bordering nearer S, I'll say the lucky card is somewhere between A and S, bordering on end of top of A over S tier. Next up for enhancements is the Malt enhancement +4. Yeah, helpful. Where glass multiplies what you currently have by 2, it's great, but you need an engine to get that ×2, because if you're playing a high card and it's glass, you turn a ×1 into a ×2. This would turn it from a ×1 to a ×5 if it was a high card, for instance. I think this has gone down in my estimations. I used to really like the malts, but I think it's gone down slightly in my estimations. I would say this is high B, low A, but I'll border this on the side of low A. Actually, I think what I'll do is let's do this. These two occupy similar spots, but I'm going to put glass above because of the deck manipulation aspect of it being just as important. It's a nice extra leg up over the malt edition. Does come into play. Next up on the enhancements is steel. No real questions, no real considerations to give here other than the fact of saying that this is S tier. Absolutely 1.5 times your multiplier at the end of a hand. So sure, this breaks stuff and manipulates it. The steel is basically, how do I want to put this? You can have up to 5 glass cards in your hand, but you can have, held in your hand by the end, a lot more steel cards. Getting ramp up from a whole bunch of steels is better than having a whole bunch of glass cards, basically. Your end deck will look like either, you know, bonus or malt or lucky cards with various additions on them and seals, hopefully, and then in your held in hand will be a whole bunch of steels. Plays really well. Chef's kiss. In fact, let's do this. The steels are more secured S tier than the bonus here, which again, that sits like tip top EA, slightly low S. Next up on enhancements is Stone. Gives you plus 50 chips by default. So Stone actually has a couple neat benefits to it. It's plus 50 chips for the card, but the card can be played in any hand and still score. So let's say you've got 3 of a kind. Let's say you got 3 sevens just for convenience, right? And you have 1 stone card in your hand. You can play out your 3 sevens. Let's say you've got a throwaway card like an extra 6, chuck that in the hand, and the stone card. The 6 won't count, of course, but it helps you with deck cycling. You've got your 3 of a kind from 7s, and this stone card will add in its score. Stone cards are actually pretty nice on plasma decks early game because that 50 chips gets distributed between both chips and malt scoring. So this works slightly higher than the rating I'm going to give this on a plasma deck, but overall Stone enhancement is like high C, low B in my opinion, but we'll stick it in C because that's looking really nice. I quite like how uniform this is looking. But yeah, Stone is one of my least favourite enhancements. It's not one I focus on too much, but it is slightly better in my opinion than the final enhancement left to talk about, where the last enhancement in question is the Wild enhancement for a wild card. So whatever suit your card is here, it now can count for any, which means that basically this is a double-edged sword. Wild cards can proc for any of the uncommon suit stuff. So if you got Rough Gem, Arrowhead and Bloodstone, this can proc for all 3 of those for each wild card. Honestly, I would say favour just not using wild card and just get your entire deck to be 1 suit by default, so that whenever you play stuff it is for sure the 1 suit. Because wild cards are also fettered by the window, the head, the club, and whatever the one for the spade is called. That's currently escaping me, but we'll get to it when we get to boss blinds. Overall, wild cards can help with stuff like panic flushes, or you know, if you got 1 card away from a straight flush. I don't recommend using straights and straight flushes as your go-to hands, by the way, but if you did need to make straight flushes, or if you want to try and get to a flush 5 earlier or something, wild card can help you with that. But for the most part, while it helps early game, you want to sort of come off from wild cards later, unless you really want to go with it for wild cards, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Again, you've got tarot cards that can change the colours and suits of your deck. Whatever. I honestly would say this goes about the same as gold enhancement. I'd say gold enhancement slightly stronger than wild enhancement in my opinion. So that's where we're looking for those. Next up, let's talk about the additions that I often refer to as enhancements because my head swaps around enhancements and additions. So first up on the additions is foil. Plus 50 when this is used. What's nice about the additions is that they don't just work on playing cards like how the enhancements do, but of course they also apply to jokers. So bear in mind, for every joker that's foiled, or for every card that you play that's foiled, plus 50 chips. Lovely stuff. This is helpful throughout the game regardless. I actually quite value foil edition. I used for holographic, but no, foil's the way forward. I think foil would come in on A tier. Think about the fact that although I'm putting this, I should say it's worth thinking about the fact that although I'm putting this here behind this, that doesn't mean that it's worse than these. It's probably like there-ish, be kind of here somewhere, like there-ish in actuality. But we're going to treat treat the enhancements within each other, or the additions within each other, sorry. But I'm not going to clear off the table for the enhancements here. So next up is holographic. Plus 10 multiplier whenever you play a holographic. Again, applies to both playing cards and jokers, of course. Plus 10 mult, flat, nice, actually. Can help you get through some tough times. I think foil's better, but I don't think hologram's too far off. This would be high B, low A. Let's put this about here. Where foil sits like here-ish. Holographic would sit like a high A-ish, honestly. High to medium A, about here-ish, to be honest. When you get jokers later on that will multiply out this can create a strong base to really propel yourself up. Next up is an addition that only applies to jokers, is the negative. It colour inverts your jokers. Some of the effects look really cool. I discussed in the Joker tier list that I really like negative Fibonacci. What the negative allows for is basically unlimited jokers. It treats itself as a free joker slot, put simply. So you can get a whole bunch of negative jokers. This is really nice. I actually really like negative. I think we'll go S tier with negative. To get negative jokers really just makes things rather convenient, honestly, and allows for some really bonkers setups. So whenever you see a negative, I'll also touch on the negative tag later when we cover tags. But whenever I see negative tag, I'll go for it. Or I should say, more often than not, I will go for the negative tags, because negative jokers really do allow to expand your setup quite nicely. There's one specific exception about negative cards that I'll go into when the time comes. There's actually not a lot of additions in the game, there's only 4, so we are on the final one right now. Polychrome. Times 1.5 multiplier. Again, this one applies to both playing cards and jokers. Really nice. Times 1.5. Nice and simple. S tier. So I wouldn't say I would be mad about any addition, to be honest. They're all fantastic. I mean, realistically, it's the same for most of the enhancements. There are times where I don't want to play for glass cards and I don't want stone cards, for instance. But for the most part, they're literally called enhancements because the clue's in the name. The additions, they're kind of enhancements themselves as well. Well, not kind of. They're kind of bigger enhancements than the enhancement cards, if you know what I mean. for the most part. So yeah, I honestly think negative and polychrome outdo foil and hologram, but they themselves but they themselves are very strong contenders. There are 4 seals in the game: red, yellow, blue, and purple. Let's talk about red first here. This isn't alphabetical right now, I know, but red. So red allows you to play any card. So all the seals, by the way, specifically go on playing cards, where negative is an addition that's specifically for jokers. Seals are specifically for cards. Red seal says that the card can be played a second time, or be played again, more specifically, because some things, of course, can be played more than twice to begin with. Think Hanging Chad, think Sock and Buskin, etc, etc. So red just allows for an additional use. Combine that with glass cards, steel cards, even though glass cards as well. Basically, this is a very versatile seal. 100% A tier. No, because this is an ace. 100% S tier. Like, fantastic. Blue seal. Also S tier. Allows you to create a planet card for the hand that you played. So, apparently in the beta version of the game, it allowed you to choose what planet you could create using the blue seal. But now it's your last hand played while the blue seal is in your hand. Very nice. Being able to create planet cards. Excellent. Purple seal. Discard the discard the card with the purple seal on and create a tarot card. This, I mean, this is going to seem like a weird analysis for the purple seal, but a bit like when I was talking about the lucky cat joker in the Joker's tier list, and I was talking about how lucky cards stop seeming to proc when I get the lucky cat joker. In the same way, when I run out of discards, the purple seal card comes up. Try not to make purple seals on cards that you want to use. Keep them specifically on cards that you plan to discard. I think this is very high A, low S. This comes just before the other two up here. And finally, the yellow seal, or gold seal, whatever. Fairly certain it's just called yellow seal. But I think that the spectral card is called the gold talisman to create a yellow seal card, right? We'll get to that when we come to spectral cards. But unfortunately, the yellow seal is the only one that I can't warrant being in S tier. It's good. It's good. But I don't think it's the least practical of the four. It's still very good. Again, think of this as high A, low S, but this is the slightly lower ranking than the other ones. The other ones are really good. This one's good. Put simply. So, antimatter. For those that haven't unlocked this, by the way to get antimatter is to buy the blank voucher enough times from the shop in runs. I believe if you buy 10 blank vouchers, you unlock antimatter. For those that need to know. So, antimatter gives you an additional joker slot. Just by default, you can just go up by a joker slot. Very helpful, right? The caveat of antimatter is that you need to have the blank voucher. But if you can get this to appear, you can get this sucker to appear and actually have it and use it, it's great. Honestly. Of course, you kind of have to jump through hoops and it doesn't always work, but when you can get it working, boy is it nice. Of course, bear in mind I'm talking about from a standard run point of view, even on like an infinite run point of view, having the extra one slot allows you to mess around with an extra one. Neat. S tier. Next up, it's Direct Antithesis and the card that precedes it, blank. So you buy the blank voucher to get to the antimatter voucher. This is a sunk cost fallacy a lot of the time because in a standard run, which again for clarification, this tier list that I'm making is specified more on standard gold runs, going for the win over most other things. There's often a sunk cost fallacy. You'll spend $10 getting the blank voucher and never receive the antimatter voucher. Of course, you can influence the opportunity for the antimatter voucher to appear more often using, say, the voucher tag, which we'll talk about very soon. But for the most part, if we're looking at this at face value, blank is D tier. Can't really say it itself is helpful. It's a means to an end. If you really want to be technical about it, think of the antimatter. Although it's an S tier, it's technically a $20 voucher instead of a $10 one. Is one way to think about it, because you need to get this and then weather the storm to get this. But the blank voucher itself, literally its description is does nothing ? And yeah, does nothing, full stop. This does good things, this does nothing. So D tier is kind. Next up on the list is a clearance sale. So this reduces the cost of everything in the shop by 25%. When I say everything, I'm not including rerolls. I mean the booster packs, the vouchers, and the stuff that's in stock in the main shop. The reason why I'm pointing out as well the fact that it changes the voucher cost is because the upgrade to clearance sale, liquidation, you're not buying it for $10, are you? You buy it for $7 because it reduces 25%. So this actually makes the liquidation cheaper. I actually value clearance sale over liquidation, which I'll talk about later. Because of that kind of fact, they both give a 25% reduction. But honestly, this is also S tier, in my opinion. If you can get this early, if you get it late, it kind of... I mean, I could never say it's anything lower than like high C, low B. But if you get this early, chef's kiss, fantastic. Next up, Crystal Ball. So, you want a third consumable slot, you say? Well, this voucher's got you covered. That's pretty much what it does. It just adds one consumable slot. It's cool. If you're not going for Perkio and negative consumable strats, because there's a voucher which I'll talk about soon, which actually has some really neat synergies with Perkio. But for now, Crystal Ball going up to 3 is nice because it allows you to play High Priestess and Emperor tarot cards to generate your 2 while still retaining another Joker in your consumable slots. So this actually allows for some quite, well, not quite fun things necessarily, but it is useful. I actually think this is like a mid-A. So we'll stick it in the end of A tier here for now, and then that can slide in and according with the other vouchers in a bit. Next up, Director's Cut. So once every blind, or once after each, so every ante there's a boss blind at the end. This allows you to re-roll. I believe that Director's Cut allows you to re-roll the boss blind once after each blind. Put simply, it's okay, but of course you don't choose what it re-rolls into, so you can go from the frying pan to the fire. This is more of a means to an end. If I'm really panicking about if I need to take this to stop something that's immediately going to stop me, like if we're fighting something that's the mark or whatever, that will stop face cards, and I really am working around court card plays, and I have this in my shop, cool. But unless I see it where it's gonna help me, unless I see it where it helps me to pinch, or on a run where I've got my cost reductions down and I've got loads of money, I generally tend to ignore Director's Cut, if I'm honest. For the most part, it's decent. I would say high C, low B. We'll stick it in C for cut for now. Next up on the list is Glow Up. So I kind of need to speak about Hone as well. We'll be coming up to that shortly, because again, I'm going alphabetically here. But Glow Up says that there's a 4 times base chance of a card in the shop, whether it be a playing card or from a booster pack or whatever. There's a higher chance of, and it also includes cards made by Judgment, by the way. There's increased odds of the card having a addition or an enhancement, basically. So it changes, well, Hone, you go from Hone to Glow Up. So both of them basically double the odds. It goes from ×2 with Hone to ×4 with Glow Up. It's nice. I think it's high B, low A, honestly. It can really pull off some neat stuff if you can get the right kind of jokers and that, but it's not always gonna work to exactly what you want because the shop is random. If it was a little more controlled for the shop, it would be a little higher, but you can't control what cards are being made. Next up is Grabber. Add 1 hand for every round. Excellent. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Adds you a hand. Unless you're trying to do... So if you're doing Acrobat and Dusk stuff, you don't want the Grabber. In the same way, which I'll discuss in a minute as well, if you're going for discard shenanigans. No, hold on. If you're going for like burglar stuff, you wouldn't want discards. In this case, of course, if you... What am I trying to say? If you want less hands, don't buy it, but it's nice to have the extra hand to secure yourself through a run. I would say high B, low A. I'm going to give this the benefit of the doubt over glow up. This is random, this is always consistent and controlled, and it's a slight money maker on a return because you get money for extra hands that you have spare at the end of each round, and this is more incentivization for you to have a hand spare at the end of the round because there's an extra hand. Nice. Next up, hieroglyph. So it brings you down 1 ante at the cost of a hand. Good for manipulating the hand count if, say, you're doing the aforementioned Dusk and Acrobat stuff. This gets negated by this, so you'd lose a hand from this. Grabber gives you it back. Fair enough. If you buy a hieroglyph in ante 1, you drop to ante 0, where your boss becomes 200 points to clear it. So you can do some funny things with hieroglyph. Also, bear in mind, if you if you are on ante 8 and you hieroglyph down to 7, you still have to fight that violet vessel that you have just tried to escape from. So just bear in mind the consequences on using hieroglyph and pteroglyph on ante 8. If you want that win, going down to 7, unless that truly helps, if you're like teetering on a win, this would be an extra step basically to deal with things. But for the most part, going down an ante can be nice because it allows you to earn the interest on the lower antes and build up, say, more vouchers by default and allow you to see more shops and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty handy in that sense. I would say it's not quite as strong as Hone and Glow Up, but I would say it's decent mid-B, honestly. Sometimes losing the hand and subsequently the discard from Pteroglyph can mess with your run a bit too much, but that's kind of a dealer's choice thing, I think. Next up is Hone. So Hone, same as Glow Up, but the Hone says that you're 2 times more likely to have the special stuff happen to your jokers and your playing cards in the shop and in booster packs and etc. And from Judgment, they function for the exact same feature. Honestly, it's the same situation as Glow Up, where they're both kind of high B, low A, but I'll leave them in high B for now. Next up is Illusion. So Illusion's the upgraded version of Magic Trick. Illusion allows you to have odds of having additions and enhancements on the playing cards in the shop. So I need to redact what I just said about Hone and Glow Up, in that Hone and Glow Up affect the jokers from the shop, not the playing cards. They're actually independent of each other. I've just gone through and fact checked myself, and I was previously wrong. Supposedly the odds are that enhancements are a 40% chance and additions are a 20% chance. So essentially you can have an 8% chance that a card has both an addition and an enhancement on it. Not too bad, but of course it's a randomized card. So it might be that you get like a 3 or a 5 or something that has your good looking stuff on it. But hey, a good card's a good card. It can certainly boost up a nice deck. If you get it early, it's a nice bonus. I do think that the Glow Up and Hone actually are better than the Illusion though. I think Illusion's about here, honestly. Maybe slightly higher, actually. Let's maybe swap this around. So next up is Liquidation. As discussed during the lower version of it, clearance sale, you don't buy this at $10, you buy this at $7 because 25% bonus has already been applied. So now your cards, rather than cost 25% less, now cost 50% less. Excellent. No complex rounding or anything to be made here. It now just becomes all things are half price. Excellent. S tier, along with clearance sale, but I'm putting clearance sale above liquidation for the fact of that, by virtue of the clearance sale makes the liquidation cheaper, and for rounding purposes, which I don't think I covered while talking about clearance sale, the 25% is a generous rounding, so it doesn't go down to 8, it goes down to 7 when you buy a voucher, for instance. It takes the kind of round number. Yeah, it does rounding, but to the generous way in favour of the player. So this is stronger than this in that sense. The two together though, super nice. Allows you to do a lot more with your shops. Next up on the list is Magic Trick, where Illusion has a chance to make the cards in the playing shop additioned and enhanced. The reason why you've got cards in the shop is because of this bad boy. So it generates random playing cards that can be bought from the shop, or rather I should specify in the proper wording of allows playing cards to appear in the shop. So from now when you re-roll, you can get playing cards. I like this. I think it's actually stronger than Illusion on its own. We'll say it's like a low A, honestly. It is helpful for adjusting your deck. If you wanted to have a bigger deck than a smaller deck, let's say for instance you're doing a blue Joker set of chicanery and you need to increase your deck size, this does a pretty okay job at it. You can buy a whole bunch of cards. Cards are actually relatively cheap from the shop if they're not additioned and enhanced. Another reason why I'm saying that Magic Trick is above Illusion is because a base card that's not been modified is a lot cheaper than a card that has been modified, so you can buy more regular cards to proc up, say for instance, your hologram. So this has a lot more merit to it than this per se. They're both still useful, don't get me wrong, but I'd be more inclined to take just Magic Trick, and sometimes I have avoided Illusion specifically for the purpose of just building up more cards quicker. Next up is Money Tree. So your base maximum interest at the end of a round is $5. Seed Money doubles it and takes it to 10. Money Tree, however, doubles the 10 and makes it 20. So in money based builds, this is really nice. If you're sitting around on a bunch of money, this generates more money. It's one of those money breeds money kind of scenarios. However, I said this during the Joker tier list, I like to spend my money. I don't often have builds that revolve around gaining interest. So honestly, this is the better form of a money voucher, but I can't say that I personally put it above Hone and Glow Up. When it pops off well, but it does rely on you being fiscally responsible, otherwise known as a tightwad. But you know what I mean. You have to make sure that you're in control of your money. This is when you're playing with bootstraps and bull and that kind of deal, because you have to have the money at the end of the round. Of course, if you've got more lucky cards to earn you money in between the rounds, let's say for instance 2 lucky cards proc your $20, yeah, fair enough, you know, having the higher interest ceiling is useful for that kind of thing. Also, what's funny is that your max interest is now $20. Put it with Shoot the Moon, 40. So helpful. So you really can scale up interest in that sense. But I don't rate the interest ones all too high. I know that they are good, don't get me wrong, but for what they actually bring to a build, for the most part, relatively obsolete in my... Well, not obsolete, but certainly not a be-all, end-all. So next up, Nacho Tong. Exactly the same as the grabber. Add to hand. So I've got nothing more to comment on this. It literally does the same functions. We'll put Nacho Tong above Grabber just because the picture for Nacho Tong is cooler. That's about it. Next up, Observatory. This is quite a fun one to talk about. So Observatory says that if you've got a planet in your consumables, when you play that specific hand type, your multiplier at the end of the hand played is increased by 1.5 times. So, referring back to when I described during the Joker tier list about how the hands are played, any Observatory mechanics are played after the Jokers. It counts as part of the Jokers phase. So the little asterisk of Jokers and also planets when you have the Observatory. This is useful for obviously all build types when it comes to, as long as you're keeping consistent on a hand type, whether you're doing infinite shenanigans with 5 of a kind, or you're building up your deck and you're doing pairs while you're getting the deck set up. This is handy regardless, as long as you've got the right planets in. So the more blue seals you have to make more planets, the better. Of course, with Perkio, this thing becomes ridiculous. Perkio and Observatory is a really good combo. So normally if you've got, say, 3 consumable slots because you've got Crystal Ball, this could at most give you like 3.75 or whatever multiplier is what this is worth by default. But put Perkio in, you get a whole bunch load of negative 5 of a kinds, and all of a sudden your multipliers go kind of whack. It's pretty nice. I don't take it too often in my runs personally, but I can certainly see the appeal of it. Honestly, I would say that situates itself about here. Let's squeeze up some of these vouchers. Next up is Omen Globe. So where Crystal Ball gives you a spare consumable slot, the Omen Globe does something entirely different. It actually allows for spectral cards to appear in your stuff. So let me get this right. I'm going to fact check myself on the spot. Omen Globe has a 20% chance to replace each individual tarot card in an Arcana pack with spectral cards. That's right, it's for tarot cards specifically. So if you've got your tarot booster decks, come up in the shop. This can turn, I don't know, let's say for instance there would have been the Devil, Judgment and Hierophant green. That Devil could turn into a Cryptid or a Ouija, or anything of the sort. So this is nice from the point of view of that you can get a whole bunch of spectral cards. Of course, it's a chance to get a random spectral card, but hey, no guts, no glory, or whatever. It's kind of nice to have. Honestly, I think I prefer it slightly to the consumables. I don't think it's S tier, but it is nice. We'll stick it in here.
That's what she said.
Next up, we'll talk about them both together because they're literally one after the other alphabetically. So this is going to be quite nice. Overstock and Overstock Plus. Adds a slot to the shop. Adds a slot to the shop. Nice and simple. So you can go from 2 slots in the shop to 3 to 4. If you've got rerolls going, these work even nicer. So the more you can reroll, the more this becomes effective. Even though it is just effective in itself, I like them both. More often than not, I end up just getting Overstock, but if I can squeeze in an Overstock Plus as well, amazing. Honestly, for play, I would recommend getting them. It exacerbates the usefulness of rerolls by virtue of you get 50% to 100% extra slots for you to buy stuff. So normally to get 4 to look at 4 options, you have to re-roll the shop twice more. So you'd have to see, let's say for instance you cut out the shop. If I want to look at 4 more options, I have to re-roll and then re-roll again. But with these two together, I only have to re-roll that extra once. So it's double. It allows you to see double the amount of things. Very helpful. So I'd say low to mid A on those. Next up on the list, alphabetically speaking, are paintbrush and palette. Both each add +1 to your hand size. Amazing. It not only affects your hand size from a point of view of when you're in a blind playing out a round, but it also affects outside of a round. So when you get tarot booster packs or spectral booster packs, when it shows you the line of the cards that you can see, your hand size is affected by that. So let's say for instance you get a turtle bean in the shop. If you buy the turtle bean before you buy your booster packs, like let's say for instance you buy the tarot booster pack, after getting the turtle bean you'll see 5 extra cards available to manipulate based on whatever the tarot cards do, because your hand size has been increased. So as such, adding 2 to your hand size is really brilliant. It also offsets the effects of certain spectral cards. Honestly, these are A tier, but these allow you to play for various other things that reduce your hand size. Most of it is spectral card stuff, which I'll talk about. So I'll briefly be mentioning these later on as references. But yeah, extra hand size, I personally say you can't really go wrong. Next up is Pteroglyph. Same as Hieroglyph, but it works for -1 discard rather than -1 hand total. So I would say that I would rather forfeit. Well, actually, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It depends on what you're doing with your deck. These two can go either or, but we'll put the Pteroglyph in front of the Hieroglyph because it's got a cooler picture. You can never hear when the Pteroglyphs are going to the toilet because the P is silent. Hardy hardy ha. Next up, similar to when I discussed paintbrush and palette, Planet Merchant and Planet Tycoon come together alphabetically speaking, so I could talk about them both at the same time. They increase chances for planets to be seen on the shop. Excellent. I don't believe that the Merchant and Tycoon ones here for both tarots and planets, I don't think either of them affect the booster packs you see. They are truly random, but for stuff seen in shops, this is great. I mean, honestly, I'll do the same thing with tarot cards here, but being able to get extra planets and extra tarot cards is a blessing. And this although it does reduce the frequency of jokers, so bear that in mind. If you've got a specific idea for your build in mind and it doesn't revolve around planets, of course this becomes lower. These are a mileage may vary, but for the most part I'd recommend somewhat grabbing them. They also synergize well, as you would expect, with the Observatory and its counterpart, which we'll see soon. Next up on the list, Recyclomancy adds 1 discard to your total discard count. You have to get this after Wasteful, but it does the same effect as Wasteful. They will go right next to the Grabber and the Nacho Tongs together. Put this before Wasteful. You know what? I'm going to break protocol a little bit here and come out from alphabetical order now. Wasteful does the exact same thing as Recyclomancy, adds 1 to discard. Very nice. For the hands and the discards, think of it as what your run's doing. So if you've got Yorick, these are more prioritized over these. If you've got, I don't know, let's say you've got Burglar and you really want to enhance your hands, you go for these and you completely ignore these. If you're going for Burglar, do not get Wasteful or Recyclomancy at all. Even if you put Merry Andy after the Burglar, these would get removed entirely because the Burglar sets you down to 0. So if you're going Burglar, don't get these at all. They are a waste of investment. just as a side note. Whereas the extra hands are always applied. So they're universally more useful than the discards. But both are very useful. Like I say, with the one exception, I'd be getting both sets where possible. Next up on the list, reroll Surplus and reroll Glut. Yeah, 25% reduction on the... No, sorry, reduces the cost by $2 per one. So your base is 5, and then it goes up and up when you click more. So it goes 5, then 6, then 7, then 8. With these two, the linear scaling starts at 1. So this one would send it to 3, then this one would bring it down from 3 to 1. Yeah. If you're going for reroll stuff, excellent. Of course, they get even nicer when you have Overstock and Overstock Plus. But for the most part, I prefer to just have the Overstock over the rerolls. As mentioned, the rerolls are for when you're using specific jokers that revolve around it. Honestly, this is slightly weaker. It's not quite a cost reduction like these two, because these two are used on everything else in the shop. These two are specifically for rerolling for the ones that get rerolled. So, although on paper they save pretty much as these two from a single instance use, they're overall slightly less useful than those. I say slightly, but I want to put them in a far lower tier. I don't think I could in all good conscience, especially when Observatory is sat right here. And these are even more useful. I think that the rerolls are very situational. I would probably say that they could sit behind Hieroglyph and Pteroglyph, actually. Next up is Retcon. So it's just Director's Cut on steroids. You can reroll as many times as you want. The value for reroll is still $10, and you can never change that. It doesn't change from liquidation or anything. You just always spend $10 to reroll. But the fact that this can reroll infinitely allows you to effectively get exactly the boss blinds you want, which is really nice. It's very costly though. So if you have stuff involving interest like the money tree and seed money, which I'll talk about in a minute when we get there. We are only at RE right now. Seed money is SE, so we're a whole letter away. If you have that much money to re-roll a boss blind, then your deck is probably far better than whatever a boss blind could do to your deck. Is partly my thinking there. The only thing this could do realistically is if you really need to get rid of, say, something that really impedes your strategy. Like it disables a suit that you really need to get rid of, or if it's a boss that's disabling your blind type, your court cards, or whatever your build type is. I said blind type, but I meant build type. So unless the boss really impedes on your strategy, I wouldn't bother with these. It's a very costly investment, because the fact you also have to spend the value of a voucher to reroll the boss isn't always necessarily worth it. Next up is seed money. So while describing with the money tree, seed money brings you from $5 max interest to $10 max interest. Yeah, it's weaker than the money tree. It's still nice. It's still B tier. But honestly, I'd put it behind the Hyro and the Pteroglyph. But this is all rather close in amongst itself. This one's just set apart from this for sure. Alright, next up, same as the Planet Tycoon, except this time it's the Tarot Tycoon. Going to be the exact same tier, allows you to manipulate the shop to say have a higher frequency of, and in this case of course it's tarot cards. Yes, and I do personally I enjoy having more fun by rolling tarot cards than I do planet cards. Planet cards is technically stronger, but tarot cards are more fun. Telescope says that whenever you've got a planet booster pack one of the options will always be your most played hand. So if you've got a neat strategy going and you've got one hand that's just consistently coming up, this is a great voucher. It assuages leveling it up. Good stuff. I like it. I don't always take Observatory in my standard runs, but Observatory I can usually definitely see the appeal of. Like, for instance, when you first play a 5 of a kind, you don't see... So, the 5 of a kind, Flush House, and Flush 5s are all quote-unquote more secret planets, because you have to do something to the base deck to allow them to appear. So you don't see them planets in the shop until you've done one of the hands, till you've basically quote-unquote activated it. So by the time you've got a 5 of a kind out, you're normally on ante 4 or above, typically. So the Observatory, when you start to play out them 5 of a kinds from there, it will then allow you to boost through from the end, to basically boost through to the end to have a lot of a higher level for that hand. We'll put it next to the Observatory. Again, these for standard play, these are both sort of high A, low B, but for infinite, again, I'm not touching the infinite stuff, but that would be up here. But again, for now, for standard play, it's not always worthwhile taking these. The Planet Merchants are worth taking, but this isn't always worth taking. Yeah, that's vouchers covered, I feel. Let's move on to tags. So for those that don't mess around with the tag system, I highly advise that you do. They're very helpful and very useful. Let's start with the boss tag. So when I just said that they're very useful, this one's one of the least useful ones. It has its uses though. So boss tag, whenever you get the boss tag, you re-roll the current boss blind. So let's say for instance you're on, say, a run where you're on ante 2 and you've got the needle at the end and you don't like that, and your small blind, which will give you nothing because you're on a higher stake here, or if you don't play that small blind and get this boss tag instead, that needle will swap around and become anything else that's available in that available pool for where you're at in the game. Is useful, not always useful, but I do like taking this sometimes on ante 1 to get rid of the Joker, which debuffs cards that have already been played in this ante. Allows you to play stuff in the big blind. Kind of nice, honestly. Solid mid B. Not awful, not great. Next up, Buffoon Tag. So Buffoon Tag basically gives you a free mega Joker pack. Great stuff. I really like it. I'm putting it in A tier. The ability to have 2 extra Jokers of your choice. And because it's a booster pack, if you don't want either of the Jokers, you can skip it if you're running red card. So I really like the Buffoon Tag. Quite honestly, I might even stretch and say put it in S tier myself. But yeah, let's do it then. Fine, low S. let's not dilly dally on the matter. Next up, Charm Tag. So Charm Tag makes a, let me get this right. Is it a standard or is it a jumbo Arcana pack? I think it's a jumbo Arcana pack because it allows you to choose 2. Oh, sorry, it's called the Charm Tag, not the Arcana Tag. It's because it makes the stuff. Yeah, it's a Mega Arcana pack because you can choose 2. So that's really nice. Honestly, high A, low S again. Let's maybe put that here for now. But yeah, two random tarot cards for a skip on a time where you'd get nothing in the small blind. Cool. I can get behind that. Next up, Coupon Tag. So, with the exception of Voucher, everything in your next shop becomes free. Yeah, I really like this one. I'm actually quite attached to the coupon tag. Honestly, S tier. Let's say, for instance, your shop gives you 2 free Mega Arcana booster packs. Well, it's just done the charm tags job and more. Because if you also buy the stuff that you have in the shop, even if it's jokers you don't want and you decide to sell them back to the shop, that then earns you money back. So you can buy stuff from the shop and then just immediately sell it back for a profit, at worst. Of course, when you've got the overstock vouchers in play, this becomes a little stronger. But if you've got the overstock vouchers, at minimum for sure for overstock plus, if you've got the overstock voucher in play, normally your run doesn't need this by then. But to be fair, like I've said before, I like to play out all my money, so this can come in clutch and help me out with later antes as well. It's usually helpful for me for most parts of the game. Just getting a whole bunch of stuff for free is really nice. We'll stick it in that low S tier for now. Next up is the D6 tag. So your first reroll in the next shop is free. I'm not a big fan of the dice tag, quite honestly. The D6 tag, I don't think it's all that much. I'll put it in D because it's D6, but this is like high D, low C. I'm not really a big fan of it. I'd rather avoid it where possible. Next up, the double tag. So this tag can become any tag. If you take a double tag, your next tag doubles up. So let's say I've got a double tag sitting here waiting, and I can skip to make a buffoon tag. Well, I actually have 2 buffoon tags, and then I play out both of them. Yeah, this can, of course, can double up to any of the other ones. So in kind of a similar thing, in a similar fashion about the blueprint being S tier for jokers, the fact that this has the capacity to do anything at precisely when you decide, S tier. Easy, no brainer. Next up is the economy tag. So this tag gives you it basically doubles up your money. So if you've got, say, $35, you've now got 70. Bear in mind this only doubles up to $40 worth of money. So if you're sitting on 100 ducats and you use the economy tag, you're only getting 40. So it does have a ceiling. But if it's the start of the run and my small blind and I see a economy tag, I'll often take the economy tag instead of playing the small blind. Just basically gives me the same amount of money as if I'd played the small blind and completed it in the first hand, kind of deal. It's decent enough. Can help. You can plan your usage of money around the economy tag to give as much as efficiency as you want it to, but it does have a ceiling. But the money is nice. We'll go high B, where the boss tag is a high C, low B. This is a mid to high B, basically. Next up is the ethereal tag. So this allows you to open a basic spectral pack, where the charm tag allows you to open a mega arcana pack. This is a standard spectral pack. Bear in mind that I've yet to talk about spectral cards themselves, but this of course will allow you to choose one of 2 random spectral cards that can sometimes play off well, sometimes not play off well, honestly. Kind of similar to how that feature works for the charm tag. I don't like the fact that it only allows you to choose 1 spectral card, but honestly it makes sense. I think the charm tag is slightly stronger than the spectral card because for quite a bit of the game I do actually value the tarot cards over the spectral cards, even though that's a weird thing to specify. There's only a couple spectral cards that I really will just pick every time I see them, which I'll go into when we cover the spectral and tarot cards. For now, it sits high A, low S, just below charm tag. Alright, next up is the foil tag. So the foil tag says that the next time a joker appears in your shop, it becomes foiled. So when you enter the shop, if you've got 2 jokers, it will always pick the one on the left, as long as that's not got any additions on them. If it's already got an addition on it, it won't count it. So if you've rolled, say, a negative and a holographic, Joker both in your shops, and that's all your slots, it won't activate the foil. It needs to be on a plain card, a plain Joker. And of course, you can't dictate what the Joker is within reason. Asterisk, if you've got either the uncommon or the rare tags, which we'll talk about soon enough, you can make it that you create the uncommon or rare card of Joker accordingly, and then this procs after. But that could be a totally bogus card. But at least it's something. Honestly, I like the foil tag. It's not as strong on the tags though as what quite a few of these other ones are, but it's certainly a high A, I would say. While the foil edition itself is useful, you know what? It creates it, and it makes the cost free. Let's account for the fact that it makes a foil card. It makes a foil card free. So let's just take what I just previously said and just chuck it all out the window. Insert Ron Swanson and his throwing his PC into the tip. Next up is the garbage tag, or as we'd say over here in England, the rubbish tag. Even though a lot of people over here in the UK are also using garbage instead of rubbish these days. Trash and garbage is becoming a colloquial norm over here. Anyway, away from the offbeat topic, garbage tag says that you gain dollars in direct proportion to the amount of discards you've saved in all your hands you've played so far. I've covered this in that I use all my discards. I like to try and get things efficient, except with the exception of certain builds such as delayed gratification, green Joker, ride the bus kind of deal. I'd rather just. This normally says $0 by the time I'm in anti 8. To be honest with you, honestly, high C, low B. I'm gonna stick it in C tier. Asterisk, your mileage may vary. I'm sure there's a lot of you that play very differently to me, and you keep your discards, in which case, you know, up to 80 you might pop, but honestly, I'm happy sticking it in high C, low B. It often doesn't do much in my eyes. In contrast to the garbage tag, next up is the handy tag, giving you $1 for every hand that you've played so far in the game. Yeah, this is a lot better than the garbage tag. There's been a few times where I've seen this thing pop off, but for the most part I'll take the economy tag over the handy tag. In a standard run, you don't always necessarily play beyond 40 hands in total, especially not if you're on the higher stakes and you're skipping the small blinds, because, well, they give you nothing in return. So I'd say the economy tag is slightly stronger than the handy tag. Handy tag might be mid to high B, but that's about that. Of course, mileage may vary. Again, asterisk, if you're doing acrobat dusk stuff, this might come down here. If you're doing burglar stuff, this comes like up here somewhat. But yeah, I wouldn't say it deviates much more than C, between A and C. I think where we're at is a happy medium. Next up, holographic tag. Exactly the same as the foil tag, but instead of creating a foil, it creates a holographic. For the exact same reasons as the foil tag, we'll stick this here, making a free Joker that becomes holographic. Very nice. If nothing more, it creates a Joker that you can subsequently sell. But you can also just keep the Joker to fill up a slot, and just, if nothing more, plus 10 mult. Regardless of which Joker it is, it will do something for you. So, the investment tag. So, while the economy tag can double your money, this is an instance where 25 in the bush is worth more than 3 in the hand. This basically guarantees a very decent amount of money after the boss blind. So you're not pigeonholed into, you must take this tag right now to use the effects of what you currently got right now. This literally just sits there and goes, hey buddy, we'll just give you your money at the end of the ante. No deals, no dramas. All good. So honestly, I value this higher than the economy tag. I would say this is high B to low A. Having this on the first couple of antes is super good. Next up is the juggle tag. Adds 3 to your hand size. Personally, I only really tend to take this either to make sure that my cards aren't debuffed for that specific boss blind that I can't remember the name of right now, or I use it on the manacle, which reduces your hand size by 1. This basically offsets the -1 from the hand size to manacle, to hand from manacle, and just like supersedes it and goes, yeah, screw you, I'm not dealing with this debuff. Overall, it's not like awful, but it's only the next round you play. I think I'll stick it in mid C, quite honestly. If this was, say for instance, the juggle tag here allows you to have 3 hand size in the boss blind, sorry, not in the boss blind, it's just the next blind you play. So if the juggle tag worked in the next blind you played and the subsequent shop, this would be a bit stronger, because of course that could then work with your tarot booster packs, etc., to help strengthen to help give more guarantees on the deck manipulation that way. But because this is just that next blind hand, nah. You can of course double it to make it +6 for that next one, but nah, not a big juggle tag fan. Next up, Meteor tag does exactly the same thing as the Charm tag, creates a Mega Celestial booster pack this time for 2 planet cards instead of 2 tarot cards, but otherwise it's the exact same intents and purposes. Stick it in A tier, same again, very high A, low S, nice and neat and simple. Next up, negative tag, once again does what it says on the tin. If you think I liked the foil tag and the holographic tag, it's a no-brainer, I'm going to like the negative tag, yes please and thank you. Almost every time I will take this. Just the fact that you can double up and have a whole, I think the most I've had at one point was 4 double tags, and then I got a holographic, not holographic, sorry, a negative one. So I had 5 negative tags just sitting there ready for the jokers to appear in the shops. And luckily, I think either 3 or 4 of them were just standard, and the 5th one was rental, and that was a meh scenario. But yeah, the negative and just having a whole bunch of jokers, fantastic. Can't complain. Alright, next up, the orbital tag. Makes a random hand type. Not even like, it doesn't like check for what you've played. It just yeets a random hand type and levels it up by 3. With the exception of 5 of a kind, Flush House and Flush 5. If you haven't discovered any of those, the orbital tag can't capture those. But if you've played, say, Flush House, it can choose to upgrade your Flush Houses. But otherwise, it's entirely random. I'm really not a fan of this. The fact that it randomly chooses is pretty awful. It's 3 levels, but 3 levels in 2 pair? Not really. 3 levels in my 5 of a kind, however. Lovely. What's the odds of me getting that though? Fairly slim to none. Honestly, it's slightly better than the discard tag. I think this sits about here. High C, low B. Maybe I could argue that we go here, or even we do this. Actually, that's about right. Next up, polychrome tag. Where do you think this is going? I don't really need to explain any further. Does the exact same as the foil tag, the holographic tag, and the negative tag, except it's polychrome edition. Moving on. Like, free card, polychrome, yeah. There's multiple ways in which it helps. Next up, rare tag. Now, hot take. I prefer the pool of jokers in the uncommon range than I do in the rare. There's a lot of rare cards that come, there are a lot of rare jokers that appear from the rare tag that I just go, oh, I don't want this. I couldn't be bothered with that. Sometimes this will give you a free brainstorm or a free blueprint, but for the most part, I actually am not a fan of what the rare tag does. I mean, I suppose you could say that it creates a joker that you know will sell for more than, say, the uncommon tag. But for the most part, like, getting a anti-1 driving license, couldn't care less. Sometimes this is great, sometimes it's not. High C, low B. We'll stick it in B, though. I think this is more low to mid B, maybe. Again, you can argue that due to based on your own personal preferences, that this could skyrocket all the way up to, say, high A, maybe even low S. But honestly, for the most part, I tend to find that I'm just selling the card that this creates. Next up, speed tag. So it gives you 5 times the amount of times that you've skipped. Plus 5, basically. So if you've not skipped at all and this is your first skip, you get $5. If this is the second blind you're skipping, you get 10, so on and so forth. Doesn't really have a cap. The only thing you could say as a cap is the fact that you can skip twice in an ante. So let's say, for instance, you were to take a speed tag at the very end of ante 8. By then you've skipped 16 times, so you'd get $80. That's about as much as you could say for a cap in that sense. And again, referring back to just regular standard 8 antes thing, no shenanigans. Honestly, it does about the same as the economy tag, but ever so slightly better in my opinion for the most part. Again, these can be swapped around. See these as practically the same. Situationally though, the flat amount is more reliable than the double amount in my opinion. Because again, that comes more down to personal choice on what you do with your money. Honestly. And again, if you're doing a run with the bull and bootstraps, economy tag, excellent. But that's not always me. Next up, the standard tag allows you to play a mega playing card pack. So you can get 2 free playing cards. Neat. It's okay. It's not a be all end all. Honestly, I think it's about the same as the rare Joker. I mean, this can create a Steel King, but at the same time, it can also make an unenchanted, no addition like 4, and then you just sat there scratching your head. So much like with the rare Joker, mileage may vary, but this definitely isn't quite the same tier as the Spectral, Charm, and Asteroid, or whatever this one's called again, tags. Next on the list, Top Up Tag. So, the Top Up Tag creates 2 common Jokers. Well, if you need to fill up the space, fair enough. I would say that the common pool is too wide and sparse for you to rely on this making something that you necessarily need. But again, it fills some holes and at worst gives you 2 jokers that you can sell at a whim. Or again, it can be an accelerator for your abstract joker if that's the route you've gone down. I think this is slightly better than the standard tag, but you could argue that the standard tag is slightly better. But I can't in all good conscience put the booster tag above even the rare tag, honestly. So yeah, mid B, honestly, about there. Next up, uncommon tag. Yeah, I prefer the uncommon tag to the rare tag. Again, it's a free joker. Not always one you're going to want. In my opinion, it's got better odds of giving me stuff that I find more successful in my runs. It could be a constellation, it could be a vampire, it could be a lucky cat, it could be freaking oops all sixes. I just find that the uncommon pool is it's like the middle ground between a lot more jokers and satisfying jokers. Where there's quite a few hard-hitting things in the rare tag, there's also quite a lot of stuff you don't want. True here as well, but I find that the percentage and the pure raw quantity is slightly better. So I would say the uncommon comes above the rare tag. Both of them would be mid to high B, honestly. I think that's about there. Finally, to complete the tags part of the tier list, voucher tag. So this allows you to create this says that on your next shop a second voucher is created. Great for when you have the money to dispose. Which again, I am personally not usually in the market for this. If you can get this working, it's quite nice. I would say having a permanent voucher bought gives you more utility than a joker that these might generate. Generally speaking, this is honestly on the cusp of S tier, maybe? Would I say this is better than these? Ever so I mean, this is a random voucher. Let's say it goes about there. So sort of mid to high A. Quite honestly. And then that can conclude the tags tier list. Again, if there's any major disruptions in this, let me know what you think. If anything, you can move a few bits up or down a tier, but for the most part, I'm pretty content with where this all sits. Next on the list, let's talk about tarot cards and spectral cards. We'll begin with tarot cards because that's what I'm looking at here first in terms of the folder. We'll discuss the first things first. God, doesn't that make sense? First tarot card on the list is Death. So Death takes 2 cards. You select the left one that you want to transform to the one on the right. Be careful when you're using Death. Do not do the reverse. I will admit, I've done it more than enough times and basically tanked my entire run from my own stupidity. That's not a fault of Death, that's a skill issue within myself. But what it can do is it can turn an unnecessary 5, for instance, into your second copy of that hologram lucky red seal queen you've been sitting on ready for AAA. Yeah, I really like Death. It's a really good form of deck manipulation. Deck manipulation in this game is rather important and useful. I will be speaking a little bit more on deck manipulation because I'll be returning to the revisions on the Joker tier list as well as some other things. But personally speaking, I think Death and one of the spectral cards we'll talk about are 2 of my favourite forms of deck manipulation, to be honest with you. I really like Death. It has no real downside, it just strengthens your deck, makes things more likely to appear, and it increases the frequency of getting them elusive cards that you've got justified. Of course, this has got more value when you get a single fantastic card over, say, a deck where you've got no enhancers or additions or anything yet. But for the most part, Death is really handy. I'll say low S tier. I'd say somewhere between high A and low S for Death as a tarot card. It's fantastic. Next up, Judgment. Short, sweet and simple. You use this, create a Joker card. Really useful at any stage, to be honest. If ever you need a Joker to be made to fill a spot, this will do the trick. It's actually quite nice to reserve a judgment if your final boss blind is Verdant Leaf, which says that every card is debuffed until Joker sold. If you've got a random Joker that you don't mind selling in your set, when you do the blind, you can sell that and then replace it with whatever randomness this may cause. Honestly, the fact that it's completely random is both a blessing and a curse, but I'll take any random Joker over no Joker at all. Honestly, high A tier. Nice and simple. Next up is Justice. As discussed during talking about the enhancements on cards, glass cards, being able to manipulate the deck by having a card help you with a high score in a pinch and then for the card to destroy itself is very helpful for deck manipulation. I personally usually will go for things other than glass, but honestly, Justice ain't too bad. While I don't use it too often, I do see the merits in it. Honestly, I'd say very high B to mid A, somewhere between there depending on your preferences. Next up, Strength. Whatever cards you select 2 to go up 1 rank. So you're, of course, reducing the lower ones. So let's say, for instance, you need more court cards. You turn your 10s into jacks, giving 2 less non-court cards in your deck and giving 2 more court cards in your deck. So it's an overall shuffle of quite a good significant amount, to be fair. Honestly, I'd probably rate this higher than what it probably deserves, but I think it's really nice early game for getting everything to match up to the ranks of what you want in your deck. I'm a big fan. I would say probably low S with Strength. Death is still stronger than Strength in my opinion, but Strength is really good. Next up is Temperance. So the first one to discuss of the 2 straight up money earning tarot cards. Temperance is... You know what? Let's do this now. Let's discuss Temperance versus Hermit Purple, shall we? So let's do a side-by-side comparison of the Hermit versus Temperance. Hermit Purple, whatever your current money is, you double it. Up to a maximum of giving you $20 extra. So if you've got $21 sat in your current treasury, you still only get 20, bringing you up to 41. Fair enough. So it's 20 up to a maximum of 20, but it's non-conditional. Temperance is conditional. It relies on the sell value of your jokers. So if you've got, say, an egg that's been cooking, you can get the max $50 out of Temperance, for example. So Temperance has got a higher ceiling than Hermit. Hermit's got an easier barrier to entry to begin with, but Temperance, it comes to a point where Hermit Purple sort of rescinds itself and Temperance becomes stronger when you accumulate more jokers. Well, I'm going to be adjusting some things with a few of the money jokers in the Joker tier list, but for now let's just say that for money purposes these 2 are both solid A tiers, to be quite frank. You could almost argue that Temperance could come into... I could almost argue Temperance as being an S tier. This kind of sits in the wibbly wobbly middly bit, wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
Actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff.
Next up on the list of JoJo stands, Silver Chariot. So Silver Chariot creates you a steel card. Excellent stuff. I rate it slightly higher than Justice. In fact, I could say this is borderline S tier, to be fair. Let's just put it in S tier. Let's do something like this, maybe. Actually, I'm going against my beginning judgment. I think I need to be more generous on some of these tiers. I've been quite limiting out of concern, but let's bump it up. Chariot creates 1 steel card. Excellent stuff. I think Justice would be too broken if it allowed you to do 2 cards as glass, so its balance is fine, but it's just not as strong as Chariot in my opinion. Next up is the Devil. If you're wondering why it doesn't look like this is in alphabetical order, it's because I've saved up all the images in relation to what they saved on the Balatro wiki images thing. So some of them are listed as so the Chariot, the Devil, for instance, which is why, Strength came before the Devil, So ignoring the alphabet aside, let's go with Devil having a gold card. Yep, just one. I think the Devil would be better if it could produce you two. But I think that's wishful thinking. But you know, the Hanged Man deletes 2 cards. Why can't the Devil make 2 golds? You know? I mean, it's a rhetorical question, by the way. You don't need to actually deal with it. I understand why, but like, I think this would. I still think this would be more rationalised as 2, in my opinion. I still think it's worth a decent amount. Actually, hold on. I was just putting that above Judgment. I think that we can say something like this, honestly. Maybe the Hermit Purple is slightly better than the Devil. Let's go with this, I think, for now. So yeah, Devil's a mid-A tier in my opinion. Most of these are like solid A tiers. A lot of Joker cards are very helpful. Tarot cards are very helpful, sorry. Next up, the Emperor. So, creates 2 random Jokers. If you have the Showman, it can create 2 of the same Jokers. But other than that, of course, it creates 2 different Jokers. So you can get 1 Death and 1 Justice, or Temperance and the Lovers. You know, the world's your oyster on that. But honestly, from a fun point of view, this is like tippity toppity S tier. I love in roguelites such as Balatro and Slay the Spire, where you get just pure.
Get on with it!
Meanwhile, back on topic, please me. We'll say this is probably worth about the same as Judgment as a tier, honestly. The fact that it can create 2 of any of them means that yes, it can be both a blessing, but it can also be a curse. There's a couple tarot cards I'll be rating lower than these. Don't worry, they're not all specifically A tier. We just happen to have seen a lot of them. Next up, the Empress. +4 mult on 2 cards. If this was 1 card, I would be looking at this and scratching my head in, like, I don't know, a B tier. The fact that it's 2 puts it situationally about here, honestly. In between a B and an A, I think, in my opinion. In my previous opinion of it was, oh yeah, it's better than Justice and Chariot. But no. It's not when you think about it. It's good, but it's not amazing. It's not like on the same level as some of the other tarot cards I've talked about already. I'm going to put it here, but bear in mind, in the spirit of it, it really is sort of somewhere between B and A. But B tier is looking a little lonely, so we'll just put the Empress there for now. Next up is me, aka The Fool. So, it's Iggy stand. I mean, I never really thought much of Iggy. Rest in peace, Iggy. You did well, but I wasn't a big fan of you. But for Balatro, The Fool is a very controlled duplicate, where the Emperor gives you 2 random extra Jokers. The Fool will give you whatever was your last played, but it's more than that. The Fool takes the last planet or tarot card. So if you had played Planet X, this will allow you to make another copy of Planet X. Or if you play Judgment, it will make you the Judgment card. This is a controlled version of the Emperor, basically. In that regard, I think I'm going to place it above Emperor. Let's say this is a low S, high A tier, about here. Next up, the Hanged Man. So you may have noticed on the Joker tier list about me sort of deprioritizing the Joker cards that reduced cards, or remove them, sorry, such as the Spectral 6-1 or trading card. But don't worry, we'll go into that with Joker revisions, because yes, deck manipulation is very important. I personally would prefer to change the deck to have the same than removal of others, for the most part. So I like to get the deaths to swap everything around to be one strong card and lean into multiples of it. But the Hangman is very good. It allows you to get rid of... It does allow you to separate the wheat from the chaff. Don't worry, my eyes aren't completely blind on all this. Hangman I really do value quite nicely. I'm going to put that in high A. This is like an somewhere between an A and S tier, I feel, for the Hanged Man. Deleting 2 random 7s, great stuff. Hierophant Green. 20 meter Emerald Splash, you say? In the meantime, Hierophant for Balatro. Bonus card. Creates plus 30 chips. Really nice. I think I would say that Hierophant is my personal favourite enhancer to give. When you compare Hierophant to the Empress, to the Tower, for instance, it's definitely one of my more favourite enhancers for early game. Obviously, Chariot is more important later, but to coast you through early, Hierophant does a lot better job than Empress. Again, it's 2 cards like Empress, but its benefits give you a lot more than what Empress does. Empress is still nice, don't get me wrong, and again, treat it like I'm putting it there, but this looks more aesthetically purposeful, I don't know. Next up, High Priestess. So High Priestess creates 2 random planet cards. Again, they can't be the same ones unless you have the Showman. Also bear in mind with the High Priestess, the more of the quote-unquote secret hands, so 5 of a kind at Flush House and Flush 5, the more of them you have, the bigger the planet pool is. So if you wanted to make a streamlined deck, I know one thing I will say is that I'm becoming more and more aware of the actual significance of pair hands later on in the game. I'll put a link to a wonderful video by Balatro University in the description, which goes into great detail on how pairs are very effective in Balatro. Kind of opened my eyes, not gonna lie. Also very well put together. So the High Priestess on a point there. What I'm trying to say is that it can give you Mercury, and it can give you, Eris. So it can give you your Flush 5s and your pairs all in one. But more often than not, you'll end up getting like a Venus and a Uranus, which you didn't want either of those to begin with. Honestly though, I really like your High Priestess. Due to the randomness of it, I'll put it in with Judgment and Emperor. Next up on the list is the Lovers. Well, in the words of that relatively unknown Keen song, despite the fact it's pretty good, the Lovers are losing. Allows you to create 1 card as wild. Supposedly there used to be a time where it used to give you 2, and then they nerfed it down. I understand the overall opinion of wild cards is relatively acceptable, but I personally don't really value wild cards, so feel free to hate on my judgment with this one. No, that's the Judgment Tarot card. But honestly, High B for Lovers, I don't think much of it. Next up, Magician's Red. Allows you to turn 2 cards into lucky cards. Really nice, actually. Again, this is one you take for the fun of it. It's not quite as consistently effective as steel cards or as glass cards, but it's very fun. And honestly, I'm putting this a little bit lower than I initially would have done. On that logic, I honestly think that lucky cards are slightly better than glass cards in my opinion. That they last for longer, and it can be an engine for your lucky cap, for instance, if that's the way you're going. But again, that's just one joker example out of 150. It's nice, but it's not a be all end all. It's brilliant when you hit the 1 in 5 for the plus 20 mult to save your run, but at the same time, don't rely on it. Next up. So this is going to sound weird, but if you assume that like a standard average would be, like when you're looking at most tier lists, a middle of the road is somewhere about C or B tier. I've only gone down to D tier here, but a lot of tier list people will go from S to F, won't they? And C, where C is considered like a standard. I consider the suit manipulations a standard. As discussed in the Joker tier list, I had set priorities on each of the suits, so we'll line them all up in the same. But I treat the treating to a suits as useful and great. Yes, it can lead to flush 5s and stuff like that, but for the most part, they're all... You can swap things around. It's a fairly baseline Joker. These, how do I put it? These all give modifiers to things. They add stuff. They enhance things. This just goes change from a spade to a club. Fair enough. Pretty standard stuff there. Pretty rudimentary. On that note, let's pull out the other three. Next up, the Tower suffers two. There's two reasons for the effect of this actually being relatively decent, despite how I'm going to put it in the tier list. So, the Tower takes any one card and turns it to stone. And stone cards can be used in basically any hand to automatically give you chips. So you can basically replace the crappy, unwanted, unused numbers into stone cards that, at worst, help you in a pinch. Honestly, I think this is high B, low A. We'll say I'd say that it's on A tier. Oh no, wait, it's 50 chips for Tower. Don't be silly. I said 25 earlier. It's actually 50. That does change things a little. Let's go about here, I think. So yeah, you could consider it roughly sort of high B to mid A. We'll go about here for generosity's sake on the Tower. Next up, Wheel of Fortune. Has a 1 in 4 chance of converting a random Joker that you have into one of the additions. Yeah, it's nice. It's a 1 in 4 chance for one of 4 options. It's neat. I like it. It's another one of those fun little mess around yeet sort of functions. It can really help turn things around. Honestly, it should belong in with Judgment Emperor and High Priestess, but if you've got this is about what Jokers that you have. If you more often than not, you'll have this appear and then hit a Joker that you don't want it to hit, or to get a wrong enhancement. But hey, a random enhancement is better than no enhancement. A random addition is better than no addition. So you know what, it's still useful. I think for now we'll drop Devil to look like it's in B, but bear in mind this is like the up here-ish, so it's like a very high B / kind of low A. In comparison, we'll do this. So we'll put the random YOLO ones together, but Wheel of Fortune is probably the weakest one. It's still nice though when you hit them polychrome and then foils. First up for Spectrals is Ankh. So I know I'm Ankh, but this is Ankh. What this does is it copies a random Joker in your lineup and it destroys all other Jokers. There's one obvious caveat here. It can't destroy any Jokers that you may have that are listed as eternal. I actually really quite like Ankh. There are a few times where I bury a run by selling all my other Jokers to duplicate a specific Joker, and then that ends up being a poor decision. I should have just not done that. But for the most part, I do really like Ankh. I think the fact that it gives you a random duplicate of your Jokers and then forcibly deletes all the other ones is a little bit harsh. But I personally do quite like Ankh. It can be very good fun. Because what it does is it also copies, with the exception of negative, it copies over all other effects. So if you've got a polychrome blueprint, Ankh will make you a second polychrome blueprint. Nice stuff. Honestly, I think Ankh is about mid-A to high A. We'll stick it in A tier here for now, and I'll readjust on the fly as we go. Next up, Aura. So Aura functions like Wheel of Fortune for tarot cards, but it's guaranteed and playing cards. Supposedly the Aura has the same chance of getting each edition as Wheel of Fortune does. But this, of course, isn't a luck roll for it to happen, and you choose which card it is. I really quite like Aura. Supposedly a pretty good company as well that helps protect you against like giving your data to like data brokers or whatever. I don't know, go watch the Kit Boga stuff. Aura's pretty good. I'd say this goes again high A, low S. You know what, let's give it an S tier. Let's give it an S tier. I'm gonna be kind on this one. Next up, Supermassive Black Hole. Those that know the Muse song, awesome stuff. It's pretty nice. I personally think I prefer Knights of Sidonia, but still pretty good. Black Hole upgrades every single hand level, even if you haven't discovered it. So Black Hole, if you get this on like after your small blind and you haven't played any other, like you wouldn't have had a 5 of a kind by then, this will still level up 5 of a kind. It literally levels up everything by 1. The only caveat with the Black Hole is that it does not work for Constellation. You cannot take Black Hole for upgrading your Constellation. It doesn't do that. But taking a 0.1 additional on the multiplier of Constellation, I'd rather just take an extra level in every single hand type. This is honestly really nice. Definite S tier. Up with Aura. S tier we go. Next up is Cryptid. The absolute freaking goat of the Spectrals, in my opinion. I love it. It takes whatever card you select and makes 2 more copies of it. So that aforementioned Polychrome Queen, you get 2 more of them. Excellent stuff. Love it. It's brilliant. It really helps ratio the deck. It's a double accelerator for the death in a sense. Really nice. Next up, Deja Vu. Honestly, creating a red seal, awesome stuff. I mean, yeah. If you haven't yet got a card for Cryptid, which is, you know, the Polychrome, it got an addition and an enhancer and a seal. Adding the seal is just really nice. S tier. Next up is Ectoplasm. I was almost about to say Electroplasm, what the hell. So, I actually have a little bit of a problem with Ectoplasm, personally. What it does is it makes a random Joker negative, and then it reduces your hand size by 1. Yeah, that caveat's a bit too hard, I feel. I mean, there isn't really a better way to balance Ectoplasm for any particular purpose. But I'm always wary about taking the, as I'll discuss with some of the other upcoming Spectral cards that talk about reducing hand size. If Ectoplasm hits a Joker I didn't really intend to keep throughout the run, I mean, sure, you no longer need to sell that Joker to make the space, but at the same time, you could have a relatively useless Joker just sitting there, but at the cost of not being able to get through your deck quicker to cycle things out. I don't know. I can't very well give this S tier, despite the fact that negatives themselves are very strong. I think that -1 hand size is just a bit too much for me. I still think it's nice. I'll still give it somewhere about the same as Unk. These are both high A tiers, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of the hand reduction size. Next up, Familiar. It deletes 1 card and then creates 3 randomly enhanced court cards. If you've got Pareidolia, it doesn't change what it makes. Familiar just says creates jacks, queens and kings. Same with the other one that creates just your basic, the incantation. That one creates everything from 10 to 2. These are specific. You can't change it with Pareidolia or anything to try and weasel your way through to making other stuff. But honestly, creating 3 enhanced court cards, if you're going for a court card deck run, this is actually really nice. I'm going to say this is maybe high A, low S. I'd rather take the permanent 3 randomly enhanced court cards over having all my other jokers destroyed to allow a double up on one, for the most part. Next up is Grim. Much like the Familiar, it destroys 1 card, but instead of giving you 3 enhanced, instead gives you 2 enhanced aces. Yeah, I've already discussed in the actual cards, the card rank tier part of the video, that aces aren't quite as strong as court cards in my opinion, and it gives you 1 less than Familiar. If you spoke to me about a month ago, I'd have said, yeah, Grim, easy S tier, no problem. Nowadays, I actually don't agree with that. I actually think it's A tier. My mind has been changing relatively drastically in the last month, in my opinion, on some of these things. And even more drastically on some of the other opinions that we'll come across at the on the amendments to the Joker tier list when the time comes. Next up is Hex. So, Hex. Yeah. Same as some of the other ones. For instance, the same as Ankh. It will destroy all other Jokers except from the card that this chooses. But what this one does is it gives the card that it chooses the polychrome effect. Yeah, it just gives it polychrome edition. Rather nice, don't get me wrong, but I can't in all good conscience say that this is any higher than Ankh. I think Ankh and Hex are basically the same tier. Again, these are 2 ones that I'd used to be like, oh yeah, S tier for sure, but no, not quite. They're really good, but the downsides of them are a bit too strong to warrant a super tier kind of ahead of the game type style, in my opinion. Next up is Immolate. So Immolate destroys 5 random cards in the card selection part and gives you $20. Not bad. When I say not bad, it's actually kind of amazing because, as discussed, deck manipulation in this game is very important. Being able to reduce 10% of the original base deck, very strong. The only problem is if you've got only court cards showing, you delete 5 court cards, of course, for example. But for the most part, this is really strong, and the fact that it deletes 5 cards and gives you money, like that's just how many advantages would you like your deck to have? Yes. So honestly, Immolate's like up here. Whether you want to do Immolate then Aura or Aura then Immolate, these are all definitely S tier. But yeah, deleting 5 cards is actually really good. Again, that's 10% of your deck. Next up, Incantation. Deletes 1 card from your deck, creates 4 enhanced number cards. This is 2 to 10. That's it. Honestly, this is the weakest of the card creations. Obviously, Familiar is the best, then Grim. Incantation, I honestly don't think I could value it beyond, at best, low A, but let's stick it in B. 4 regular playing cards isn't really what I'm looking for in most decks. This is nice, the fact that it creates an additional 1 card than, say, Familiar, but they're not always the right kind, are they? So, it's really nice for executing hologram, but next up, Medium. Stick this on a card you always plan to discard. Marvellous stuff. You're sitting pretty. Honestly, much the same as where I put the seals in the tier list. I'll be sticking the relevant Spectral Cards in the exact same positions. I will say that one keen-eyed viewer noticed that I use Roll20 for my tier lists. Yes, I do. There's dozens of us. Dozens. So, much the same as discussed in the seal tier list, the actual Spectral Cards that represent the seals will go in the exact same representative spots. I gave an explanation as to what the seals do and why they're effective earlier. Ouija turns everything of your selected cards in the card selection screen, which by the way is determined by your hand size. So the bigger your hand size, the more cards you get to see. Very useful when using Ouija and upcoming Sigil to talk about. Basically, Ouija turns all your cards that you can see into the same rank They can all become 6s, they can all become kings, they can all become 4s. You get the idea. Nice and simple. It does reduce your maximum hand size, but honestly, I quite like Ouija early game, because you can instantly turn like a decent fraction of your deck to be the same kind of card. Makes it really easy early game to get some preemptive, useful same card synergies. I personally am not a massive fan of it otherwise though. This is much like how Incantation goes between high B and low A. This is low A to high B kind of deal. This one's on the higher side, but it's about in the same effectiveness. Next up, Sigil. So Sigil turns every one of the selected cards like how Ouija does for rank, Sigil does for suit. So it's useful if you want to get some flush synergies in that early game, but honestly treat this as one of the lower spectral cards, if not the lowest spectral card. Again, it helps with early like flushes and helps you carve the deck into a particular way, but that's pretty much it. Next up, the Soul, or just, yeah, the Soul. The card just says Soul, of course, but how many times do you want to say Soul in like 10 seconds, me? Come on, get in with the times. Honestly, the Soul is about as useful as what you perceive the legendaries to be. I have had some discourse on the Joker videos about Perkio. I will go into those on the Joker tier list or revisions at the end of the video here. But yeah, honestly, this is really nice. I'm going to put it as high A. Lastly, Wraith creates a rare Joker, sets your money to $0. So if you had $10,000, guess what? You're losing it all to make a rare card. And for me personally, I usually avoid the Wraith Spectral card like the plague. Again, treat Wraith as your personal worth on what it is to create a rare Joker. I personally value it relatively mediocre at best, for the most part. Again, I much prefer the uncommon Joker pool over the rare pool. I think this is high B, low A. Some of you may go, oh no, it's definitely higher, but I'd situate it pretty much like a here-ish deal. Next up, the planets. So first on the list of planets is actually a dwarf planet, Ceres. There wasn't enough hand types, so unluckily Mahe Mahe and her what's the other one? Hermea? Should be Hermea, right? They included Ceres and Eris, but they didn't include Mahe Mahe or Hermea. So yeah, there's a couple dwarf planets missing is my point. There's me trying to be funny and then realise that I'm now being a nerd / boring. But my nephews used to love the planet, so I got pretty good. So, this is almost a case of where do I value the hand types, realistically? So you could see this almost as the hand types tier as well, because that's exactly what they influence. There's a couple exceptions to that rule, but flush houses, honestly, meh. Ceres is about B tier. Next up is Earth. I would say this gets a relatively decent note of high B to low A tier, probably. Next up is Eris. I'm going to say this is high A, low S. Next up is Jupiter. See, I'd say this gets about the same recognition as what Earth does, in my opinion. So, high B, low A. Next up is Mars, 4 of a kind. Really nice. High A, I think. Next up is Mercury. But honestly, I'll once again refer back to encourage you to refer back to the Balatro University video. Pairs are really quite strong. Although they don't have the best linear scaling in terms of what the planets do, they're still upgrades, damn it, and they sure as well hell work for a relatively easily playable hand, so can't really say fairer than that.
Upgrades, people, upgrades! That's how we make the dough.
Next up on the planets then is Neptune, straight flush. I think this can go in the same kind of mid to low B. as Ceres. Next up is Planet X. Nice and simple, basic 5 of a kind, S tier. Next up is Pluto, which is for high cards. Honestly, actually about the same level as Ceres and Neptune. Let's put it above them because I feel like it. Next up is Saturn. I think I'm going to do a little bit of an adjustment here. So while Jupiter, Earth and Saturn would all be sort of high B, low A, I feel like the Earth will be the strongest of the 3 of those. They're all relatively similarly consistent hands. Straights and flushes is... realistically, the difference between the straights and the flushes is how are you building your deck. Next up is Uranus. Or if you're like a 7-year-old child like me, Uranus. Hee hee, tee hee hee hee. This is 2 pair. I actually quite like... Oh, I nearly said it. Okay, don't not say it, me. I really quite like Uranus. Fine, I'll say the thing. I would definitely say this is better than Saturn. There's a lot of good things that synergize off 2 pair. Relatively accessible hand type. Yeah, I'd say this is above Saturn in that case. Lastly on the list is Venus for 3 of a kind. Honestly, I see the 3 of a kind as about the same as for the straights. I think Venus is about B tier. Again, questionably, the bottom 2 could almost questionably be C tier, but honestly, all the planets are really effective upgrades, and whenever you've got the accessibilities to upgrade the hand types that you use more often than others, yeah, send it to the freaking moon. No, that's with Earth. But yes, that's where I'd sit with the planets. Okay, next up is the booster packs. I'll try and make this one quick. Okay, last one to discuss now is the boss tags. Or the boss chips, sorry. And first on the list is Amber Acorn. This is one of the few boss blinds I pulled up as an example in the Joker tier list initially, because it has a very specific thing that basically it can be bypassed very easily. Amber Acorn flips and shuffles your Jokers. That's all it does. It doesn't stop them from being played. It doesn't stop you from being able to use them. If you've got the right kind of Jokers, you can figure out where they will need to go in order. What I would actually recommend doing, for those that play exclusively in 4x speed, if you're going against Amber Acorn, honestly, I'd recommend dropping you down to at least 2x speed, and watch how the scoring goes. If you don't have Square Joker, Wee Joker, Photograph, or Half Joker, you can tell which Jokers are which, for the most part, based on how they proc while the scoring is taking place. So this is a very manageable boss blind. Actually, SABCD doesn't make sense for the boss blinds. I'm going to change this real quick.
5 minutes of farting around with stupid names later.
Right. SABCD made no sense for boss antis in my opinion, so I've changed it slightly. I've also given a colour update for the ones that are harder to see here. So you've got Annoying as Heck. They're like the really frustrating Jokers that are bosses that are really difficult to deal with. Annoying but mostly manageable. So of course that's slightly easier. Basically this is going from difficult to barely even worth talking about. And for the most part, Amber Acorn, I think this goes in the aptly named, wait, this is a boss blind? It's fairly negligible. The only thing that really makes it difficult is the fact that you're fighting a ×2 anti, aka just what every boss blind that's not a modified one is, put simply. Next up is Cerulean Bell. So much like Amber Acorn down here, Cerulean Bell is an anti-8 boss blind. When you go into Endless mode, it also appears at 16, 24 and 32. So Cerulean Bell says, always forces one card to be selected. It's okay, much like the Amber Acorn, most of the time it's not really much to talk about, but sometimes it can be frustrating when it pulls out a card that you want to play, but not until you've got other cards with you, or it'll pull out your one steel card that you wanted to be a part of your scoring. But for the most part, Cerulean Bell is a fairly straightforward boss. We'll put it in the low end of hardly a challenge for now. It may even drop to, wait, this is a boss blind at some point, but for now them two together look pretty nice. Next up, Crimson Heart. This is another boss blind. Sorry, all the ones that are alphabetically first pretty much are all the boss blinds, just because most of them are the actual names, like stuff that's not just begins with a T. Like all the other ones are the something, so if you're wondering why, that's why we're going there. So the Crimson Heart says disables one joker every hand played. So this can really get in the way of, this can sit on your photograph, or it can sit on that pesky negative delayed gratification that you haven't looked at since Ante 1. Honestly, this is mostly an okay one. Sometimes it can really off-kilter you, but that's less often than not. Honestly, we'll put it at the bottom end of not bad, not good. I think as a boss blind. Some of the boss blinds are actually a bit more difficult, but these three that we've discussed so far, pretty much no. There's a lot more of the basic ones are more difficult, in my opinion, or annoying. Alright, next up is the arm. So the arm says decrease level of played poker hand by 1, and that's it. So if you've not gained any planets or leveled up any hands, this boss does nothing. Otherwise, it can bring you down by 1 level, but that's about it. And of course, that applies per hand. For the most part, you could. So if you've not upgraded anything, it sits in wait. This is a boss blind. It would sit anywhere between wait. This is a boss blind to annoying, but mostly manageable. For the most part, though, I'll put it in hardly a challenge, but this is mileage may vary. Sure, it's an inconvenience to have a hand level down, but that can be relatively offset. Or, as mentioned, it does nothing at all. So, in my experience, it has leveled down a couple hands that are annoying, but for the most part, it's pretty manageable. I don't think too much of it. Next up is the club. So, the club affects gloves. Nice and simple. Unlike these other presented ones, the three, with the exception of the arm, by the way, are only anti 8. The arm is actually available from, I think, level 2. Yeah, minimum ante is 2, so you can get the arm at ante 2. You can get it at ante 6. You know, as long as it's 2 or beyond, you get this. Not accounting for Hierro or Pteroglyph, of course. As mentioned earlier when talking about vouchers and how you can Hierro or Pteroglyph your way from 8 to 7 and then you get to fight you get to fight 2 Act 8, Ante 8 boss blinds. Anyway, the club. So, I find it mildly inconvenient, same with all the suit ones. So let's grab all 4 of the suit ones, shall we? Let's talk about all 4 at the same time, because they're all the exact same for the most part. So we've also got the goad, the head, and the window. So these can tamper with quite a few runs. They can be accessed anytime since the beginning of the game. Minimum ante 1, easy peasy. Problem is that it can debuff at times where you really don't want it to, or it can affect your specific deck if you're rotating around a suit. This is why I prefer to rotate around specific ranks of cards rather than suits of cards. Sometimes sometimes you can pigeonhole yourself into the specific suits, but I prefer to go by ranks where possible. But I would say that all 4 of them are annoying but mostly manageable. Next up is the eye. So the eye says that you cannot repeat a hand type. Basically, it's the opposite of the mouth that says only one hand type can be played. But for now, let's just continue discussing the eye, because that's the one we're looking at. So no repeat hand types can be a little frustrating. I would say that this is one that's annoying but mostly manageable for the most part. We'll stick that in the annoying but mostly manageable part here, I think. Realistically, these aren't specifically high A, high B, they just come in the brackets of the descriptions, as it were, for the most part. Next up is the fish. Cards drawn face down after each hand played. If you jimmy your deck a little bit, you can switch between rank and suit, and you can pretty much decipher what you believe for most of the face down cards to be. Also, if you clear this boss blind in one hand, you don't even have to worry about its consequences. I would say that the fish totally is about not bad, not good. I'd list it as either being not much of a challenge to meh, this isn't a great boss in terms of its, not necessarily in terms of its design outright per se, but I just feel like more often than not I can just game the system with the fish, because as mentioned, if you can do it in one, you don't even have to worry about its side effects, to the point where it's basically not even a boss blind. So I think not bad, not good is a pretty decent compromise of, wait, this is a boss blind. It's not quite that trivial, but honestly, I'm not a big fan of the design, so that's another reason to put it in not bad, not good. Alright, that's better. Let's rename it to mediocre at best. If you know, you know. Next up is the flint. Base chips and multiplier for played hand is halved, so by default, a flush at level 1 gives you 30 chips and plus 4 multiplier. That, of course, versus the flint will be 15 chips and times 2 multiplier. So it can kind of screw you over. If you've got a really good Joker setup, again, much like the fish, you can totally outplay this. But honestly, I would say this is slightly more annoying than the fish. I usually have, this is one of my run ending boss blinds, if I'm honest. I would say this is annoying but mostly manageable. I wouldn't quite say it's like super annoying. There are some super annoying ones to cover, but I don't quite think this is too overly annoying. It'd either be annoying as heck or annoying but mostly manageable for me. But I'd say that for the most part, annoying but mostly manageable is a good place to be putting it. Next up, the hook. Another boss blind I particularly pointed out during the Joker tier list. This one discards two hands. It discards 2 cards that have remained in your hand after you've played your hand. Sorry, they remain in your hand after you've played your, whatever. They take 2 out of the reserves. So it's an extra 2 discards. But although that can be annoying if you're going for a particular setup, it can be useful for your Jokers, which I noted specifically more so the mail-in rebate and the castle in the Joker tier list actually. So to be fair, this actually works as much to your benefit as it does to your detriment. Honestly, this one either would be seen, I'd probably say this one's relatively mediocre at best, to be fair. Next up is the house. Your first hand is drawn face down. Well, guess what? You can discard, say for instance, you're playing with court cards and your deck isn't fully established yet. You can almost guarantee the furthest, somewhere between 3 to 5 cards on your right hand side if you're shuffling by rank will be, normal non-court cards. Or if you're going for a suit, the suits work that the furthest left suit is spade, then it's hearts, then it's clubs, then it's diamonds. So you can actually work out roughly where to delete. So say for instance your hand focuses around clubs, you could rearrange by suit, discard the furthest 5 left cards, try and get you down to clubs. Then you have cards that are face up, and from the face up cards you can then try and decipher what's face down from that. Honestly, there's a whole lot of yappages, but just bear in mind what I'm trying to say is that you basically can toggle between rank and suit. Once you've got a couple face up cards, it's kind of the same as the fish in that regard, it's just a reverse version of the fish. I would say this one though is a lot more manageable than or a bit more manageable than the fish, so I'm going to say it's hardly a challenge. Next up is the manacle. I don't even need to check descriptions or anything on this one. This one irks me so hard. This is one of the ones that makes me most annoyed. The manacle says -1 hand size. Really annoys me. For some people this might be put as annoying but mostly manageable or mediocre at best, but honestly I really don't like the manacle. It annoys me no end. Having one less hand size is... yeah, I don't like it. It really puts me off. It throws me off. I don't like it. I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Next up is the mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
All face cards are drawn... oh, the description on the Balatro wiki. I discussed this in the Joker tier list on how they...
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
So, this one is all court cards face down, but of course also affected by pareidolia. There's one specific thing about the mark though, of course. It only places court cards face down. If you don't have pareidolia, you know exactly where your jacks, queens and kings are. You don't know which ones they are in relation to, you know, the quantity of, say, kings to queens, but you do know that if you sort by rank, your kings are on your left, your jacks are on the right. You can also play a hand that contains no court cards, and if you've got Shoot the Moon or Baron, or if you know you've got specific court cards that are steel already or some such, you can watch the... much like how I discussed with the Amber Acorn, slowing down your game speed here can be useful on this one. So account for game speeds a little bit. But to be fair, for the most part, I'd consider the mark to be mediocre at best, honestly. Most of the time, if I see my face down court cards in the mark, I'm like, yeah, I can play them. Or if it's a deck where I don't want to play my court cards, and say for instance I'm going for a Wee Joker deck or some random walkie-talkie yeet deck, I know that they're ones that I can avoid. Next up, the mouth. Almost the antithesis, but like the mirror image of the eye, where the eye says you cannot repeat hand types, the mouth says you can only play one hand type. Yeah, so while the eye is annoying because you can't repeat stuff, this one says you can only do it. And I don't know about you, but there has been many times where I've forgotten unversing the mouth, thrown out DNA, duplicate on my king or whatever, and then had to play high hands for the entire rest of the blind, and then lost because I forgot. So I'm going to put this in annoying as heck. Even on a standard run, it can be annoying. Like, it's not just oh, I've played a high thing from DNA. Sometimes you're trying to reset your hand to be a specific type, but because it's a relatively uncommon type, you might hit it once or twice, but then miss it on the final one. So I find the mouth annoying as heck, honestly. Next up is the mouth. So, no, it's the needle, stupid. We just talked about the mouth. Next up is the needle. So, this says you get one hand to earn the points. Nice and simple. I personally would probably say this counts as either somewhere between wait, this is a boss blind and hardly a challenge. There's very few instances where I've got a run that wouldn't be able to fulfill the challenge of the needle. The needle can appear anywhere from Ante 2 onwards. But even on Ante 2, let's say for instance you've got like a 2 Joker set up at that point where you get a little bit of extra malt and a little bit of extra chips. I mean, on Ante 2, Gross Mikkel and a relatively decently remaining ice cream, them 2 Jokers alone can smash the needle regardless of what you play. I'd say it's a very manageable boss blind. There are certain blinds where it can be more difficult, but the earlier you see the needle, the easier it gets. Next up is the Ox. This sets your money to $0 when you play a randomly chosen hand by the game. So it might say playing a pair sets you to 0. Oh, it's not random, by the way, it's the most played hand. Silly me. So if you play like pairs often, and this says, hey, you get your money set to 0 from playing a pair, maybe you might want to reconsider it. However, there is some fun caveats with this. So let's say, for instance, I have a credit card and my balance is minus $18. I might want to play that pair. I'll go from minus $18 to 0. Nice. But for the most part, it's honestly not a big deal as long as you can work around it. Or if your treasury's low anyway, because you're a money spender like me rather than a money saver, then this basically becomes, wait, this is a boss blind. But honestly, I would say that the Ox realistically would come into annoying, but mostly manageable. Like, I would stress that mostly is an understatement with the Ox, but that works. Next up is the Pillar. So, this one says any cards that have been played during this ante before the boss blind get disabled. There's workarounds. Let's say, for instance, you had a Strength Tarot card and your Jack was disabled because of the Pillar. If you play Strength on that Jack is now playable because it's no longer the same card. It's rather nice. So, there's ways and means around the Pillar. I'm personally get a bit too on edge when I see the Pillar though, and I skip all the. I tend to skip all the the blinds when I see the Pillar. Or if I can, I'll try and do a reroll via a reroll tag or luchador out or something. So in my opinion, I would consider it to be annoying, but mostly manageable. If you have a tendency of playing out too many blinds and you find that this boss blind is eating you apart in a lot of your runs, maybe try skipping a few more blinds here and there so that you reduce the amount of cards that are debuffed. Next up is the Plant. All court cards are debuffed. Of course, if you've got Pareidolia, this says all cards are debuffed. And I have definitely been coming around to the court card Metaslave Hive Mind. This would definitely be somewhere between being really annoying and kind of annoying, honestly. I'd say it's relatively frustrating, but if you've got backups in your hand, you can mostly go around this. But I'm not saying it's fun to play against if you go for the one of the meta ways to play the game, that's for sure. Next up is the Psychic. The Psychic says that you must play 5 cards in every hand, or else it doesn't score. So if you've got your half Joker, you can't use it. If you've got a square Joker, you can't benefit any extra points. You'd still, of course, get what you've banked on the square Joker, but you can't add to it because you have to play 5. So if you can only make a 2 pair, you have to throw out the 2 pair and just a dummy card, so that the played cards still adds to 5. Sometimes this blind gets me because I forget and I play 4 cards out instead of 5 accidentally. But I wouldn't say this makes this annoying per se. I just think it's a bit of a poopy concept for a boss blind, quite honestly. Like, I get what they're trying to do, but for the most part, I don't think it's... I think it's like a fairly negligible boss. I'd say it's mediocre at best. I get what they're going with it, but honestly, if they cut this out from the game, I wouldn't mourn it. Next up, the Serpent. So the Serpent says, regardless of how many cards you play or how many cards you discard, you always draw 3 cards. There's a fun little caveat in here. It ignores your hand size. So you can discard 1 card, bringing your hand size from, say, 9 down to 8, for example, in a run. And then you go up to 11 cards. That's right, max hand size doesn't matter. So you can basically pull out like half your deck in the same hand, and then make whatever hand you need to from what's in your hand. Pretty nice, honestly. It can be a bit frustrating you only receive 3. But if you make it work to your benefit, it's honestly not that bad. I personally would probably say it's somewhere. I'd either say it's hardly a challenge, or it's annoying but mostly manageable. It is mostly manageable, to be fair. I'll put it in as hardly a challenge, but you can say it's either annoying or not too much of a problem. Next up, the Tooth says that for every card you play, regardless of whether or not it scores, you lose $1 for it. So let's say, for instance, let's compare a Psychic hand, right? So Psychic, if you can play a 2-pair, you have to play that 5th card to make it score. In this instance, throwing out that extra card would cost you $5 instead of $4 to play that hand. So it can tank quite a bit of your money if you play too many cards. So going for conservative hands like pairs and 3 of a kinds, for instance, sort of less is more with the Tooth. I'd say this is annoying but mostly manageable. There was like 1 or 2 times where this has literally bankrupted my my run, and it's caused the game over from too much losses of money, but that happens very few and far between. Next up, the Wall. So the Wall says that your boss blind value is 2 times the 2 times. So instead of being 2 times your base value, it's now 4 times. So let's say, for instance, you get this on Ante 2. You've got to score 4,000, not 2,000. Alright. It can... I would say it's one of the boss blinds that takes me down more than quite a lot of them, actually. I'd say the Wall is one of my relatively more frequent run enders, because it often comes and hits me at a time where I'm still building up, to which I'd say that is annoying as heck. But I would say that overall the boss blind is annoying but mostly manageable. If you way exceed your scoring, for the most part, this is a fairly negligible blind and you just play it out. No real questions asked. Next up is the Water. So the Water says that you start with 0 discards. Oh well, that's just an early Mystic Summit proc. You don't have to discard to make it happen. It can be something that can end your runs. For instance, as I've said before, I quite like discarding cards. I'm quite discard, I'm quite liberal with discards. So for me, I'd say this comes under somewhere between being a meh to annoying but mostly manageable. If you know it's coming up and you've got Joker spaces and you find stuff like Mystic Summit or Burglar, you can mostly counter this to make it hardly a challenge, for instance. But I'm going to say it's annoying but mostly manageable based on my own personal experiences with the boss. Next up is the Wheel. 1 in 7 cards gets is dealt face down. 1 in 7, not bad. When you've got Oops All Sixes, it becomes 2 in 7. Still not bad. If you've played the X-Ray Challenge, you know 2 in 7's not even that bad in comparison to what could happen. Honestly, I'd say this is a fairly mediocre at best blind. Much as described with some of the other blinds, you can literally decipher some of the face down cards by sorting by rank or by suit to say, hey, it may be anywhere from this card to this card, based on how the suits and the ranks work in your hand when arranged. Next up, Verdant Leaf. This boss blind says that all of your cards are debuffed until 1 Joker is solved. There's been 1 or 2 runs in the past where it literally doesn't matter if my cards score and I've beaten this blind, but for the most part this is annoying as heck. You get the perfect Joker setup, all to have a gap because you have to destroy something or sell it back, to make sure that you can keep your run going. Really annoying. Like this one pisses me off. If I've got a decent Joker setup and I'm just messing around to see what I can do with the build and just have some fun with it, this comes along and says, surprise motherfricker, and then I have to get rid of something that was nice for the setup. Finally, on the boss blinds, is the Violet Vessel. So I think I gave out some wrong information in the past where I said that the Violet Vessel is 8 times the 8 times the standard blind. It's not, it's 6 times. With the Violet Vessel on Gold Stake, you go from where most of the other ones are 400,000 points. This is 1.2 million. Honestly, I'd put this in annoying as heck. It really is a wall of a wall. Like, the wall's annoying, but the Violet Vessel is even more obnoxiously annoying, I tend to find. I'd still say that for the big boss blinds of the ones here, I'd say Verdant Leaf is the most annoying when it comes to the anti-8 specific boss blinds, that's for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the boss blinds. Quite a few of them you can mostly tiptoe around. Some of them will directly counter you, but if they don't directly counter you, most of them are relatively manageable. You just need to, I would say, at least be aware of what blinds you're coming up against. And if it's one you don't like and you have direct discard or retcon, yeah, just switch it around. But very few of them are insurmountable for most builds. One big example of it is the plant. I know a lot of people won't like the plant because if you're going for the court card photo Chad setup, yeah, that then becomes super annoying as heck, to the point where you could list it in another tier that's just called Run Killer. But yeah, that's where we'll sit for the boss blinds, I think. Right, to wrap up this video, I'd actually like to go back and revisit the Joker tier list, because there's been a couple excellent comments and points I'd like to discuss in relation to other people's opinions brought upon via my previous video. So let me just pull those up. First up, I'll point out Obelisk. There's been a couple people that have very much not appreciated my take on Obelisk. I'm sorry guys, I'm not budging on that one. That is very much not a budge. that stays as jollification by the lightning seeds. I'm sorry, you can't convince me. It really is a bogus Joker in my opinion. I appreciate what you guys have been saying about it, but I really can't budge on that one. Next up, one of the other big points to talk about actually is the money situation. There's been quite a few remarks, especially about trading card. You have convinced me. There was one really good comment. It's not actually going this high, by the way, but I will bring up a comment while I'm here, because this was a really good point that I can further bring up. So the Meme Fist had replied to 25SZZ saying, "Trading card is one of the best deck fixing jokers in the game. The ability to shrink your deck in control of the cards that you have is so extremely valuable." I 100% agree with you, Meme Fist. I did double check with you. You were okay with me taking this comment and pointing this out as a nice little showcase. Thank you. Yes, you raise a really good point. The reason why I was devaluing this is because yes, deck manipulation is amazing, but I don't like the trade-off of it taking out a discard. I still don't like that trade-off, but this opinion was also reinforced amazingly by Farkler, who also said that I have Golden Joker in B tier, which makes a single dollar more than the trading card, but loses the value of removing a card. They then followed this up by saying, would I pay $2 for a Hangman? Absolutely, I would pay $2 for a Hangman. And yes, you raise a really good point. Trading card is better than Gold Joker. And that's enough of a conviction for me to actually realise and think about it more. Honestly, the Golden Joker is actually one of the weaker money earners. While I put Shoot the Moon in C tier, I'm now considering that that's actually unjustified. I still think it's a relatively weak one. Again, it can work quite nicely in the specific builds, but I think it gets as much merit as the Golden Joker, realistically speaking. At this point, honestly, let's put Gold Joker as like a low to mid B, same with Shoot the Moon. Also to point out another comment, Not a Cat Cool said, trading card and all spectral cards and most eco and C and D tier. As an interesting take, basically. I can move it all down to C tier if you want. But honestly, you have definitely got me thinking that I was way too harsh on the econ. Let's put trading card actually up to... This is how much your comments have made me think more about it. Although I'm not one to really take this card, you have definitely made my opinion of this a lot better. Let's put this as, say, high B, low A. You've also made me consider something that I wouldn't have otherwise considered. The rocket, I valued way too highly. And actually, the mail-in rebate is actually better. I know I said about some caveats about not playing out the discarded stuff. It brings up stuff you don't want to discard, but on the whole, mail-in rebate gets you a lot more money than the rocket, realistically speaking. You guys have been opening my eyes to all of this. I still maintain that the Matador's not a particularly great money earner. It's okay, but not great. You've also somewhat convinced me, actually, that the golden ticket should be a little bit higher. Again, I was a little bit too harsh on some of my takes about the money stuff. Money is still important. I still don't think I can be persuaded by the Square Joker too much. I think that you've been raising good points about how actually it is more viable than I was initially giving privy to. And I have talked about the importance of chips. Let's say Square Joker can move from high D to low C up to mid C, honestly. I still don't think it's something that's going to be quite revolutionary and groundbreaking, but you've definitely opened my eyes on that one as a thought, so thank you. Actually, yes, I will touch upon the messages from Supernovella. First off, thank you, Supernovella. I really appreciated your messages. You mentioned about throwback at A tier. You raise a good point. It is a bit weaker than I really gave credit for, isn't it? Let's be honest here. B tier, because another one that caused moral outcry was Perkio, and you've all raised some very good points. Perkio is not realistically a B tier. Perkio deserves better than this. Perkio, absolutely, you've made me sort of give it up in my estimations in what I initially said. I also made a point that I'd like to outwardly say I was wrong on. I said in comments to Beanbag Bevo, I said in relation to Perkio, it isn't as worthwhile the later you grab it. I still maintain that's relatively true, but I said anti 1 to 3 is high A tier than diminishing returns. Not entirely true. It's relatively consistent. It's definitely worth at least an A tier. Again, it's actually pivotal for non-int runs where you can just get a whole bunch of copies of negative whatevers and just go crazy, especially when you do Blueprint next to it, because Perkio works with Blueprint. So you make Perkio proc and then you put Blueprint back to something else after it's done its shop proc stuff. So it's actually a lot better than I gave credit for initially. Again, I feel like there was quite a few judgments where I was a bit too harsh on it. So Perkio might even be up here alongside Canio. Quite honestly. I feel like I overrated Canio, but that's okay. It's still up there. It's still good. I think it is stronger than Yorick overall across most rankings. But I think that may be my currently revised version of the Joker tier list as per comments and people's contributions into the discussion.
Did you forget about me?
Oh, that's a good point. There is one more I wanted to talk about. The Spectral 6 card. I've talked already in this tier list about how 6s are a relatively low tier. So the fact that this destroys cards to make my deck smaller and it's 6s means that I should give a higher value to this. We'll say this is... And it also creates a Spectral card. So I'll say that actually this teeters more into the B tier somewhere. Let's stick it over here for now. So yeah, that's the other amendment I wanted to make there. So I think that would be about reasonable. Again, it'd be somewhere in here to like a low to mid B, I feel. But yeah, So thank you all for watching this part. Hope you've enjoyed. Hopefully I may have enlightened somebody to something within all this. But of course, as the same with the Joker tier list, if there's any particular messages, I'll do my best to get back to you all. And yeah, peace and love, and I will catch you all hopefully soon on the floppity flip.